Welcome everyone to Legion Gaming. I'm your host Donnie, and today I'm joined by my co-host Deuce.
I have been waiting minutes to do this.
And I'm also joined by my brother from the same mother, very new guest to our show here, Bob.
Hi.
Bob, how are you today?
Pretty damn good, actually, to be here. It's been a couple of years, I think, right?
It's been a while. We recorded, I think, an HVG episode way back, and I don't think you've been on our gaming one ever.
No. We always talk about it. We're like, man, he'd be good for this topic or this topic, but... yeah, it's a great little reunion here going on.
It's a nice little reunion because I've known Ducey for 33 years, and Bob, you're not much older than that. So Ducey's known you for the vast majority of your life since you're like 3 or 4 years old. It's pretty amazing.
Oh yeah, and annoyed the crap out of both of you for like 2/3 of that.
It was so it's quite the reunion, and I think it's great that we're going through one of our most favorite series growing up, especially one of yours and mine, Bob, and it's the entire Twisted Metal series. So I am quite excited. This is something that's been making for quite a while because we had to plan to do this like way back, and things happened and could not happen. We're making it happen today, and it's going to be episode, I think it'll be 65.
Yep.
Because I'm leapfrogging this. Because we're going to do the top, by the time you have heard this episode, we will have done the top N64 games, hopefully with our friend Vito, which is kind of weird. We're recording this before we record that one. But
that's going to be a fun one, too.
It will be. I'm really excited for that one.
Sorry, guys. It was a fun one.
It was.
It was a good listen, too.
Yeah. Exactly.
Could you believe that was the top game?
Yeah, we're playing a little bit Back to the Future. It's pretty great. But before we get started, we always like to go through stuff we're playing. So, Bob, I know you haven't been playing a whole lot, but what have you been playing lately?
All right. Well, quite a bit. So I don't know if you guys have enough time for me to go over it. So it's I told you this pretty recently. I finally had actually no. I always wanted to get this for such a long time. I just didn't have the money for it. It was a little too pricey. But I got lucky and got my hands on, I'm sure you guys are aware what this is, a PlayStation 3.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, it's good. I tried to send you a message on it because I booted it up when I was like, oh my God, like I've activated the account or whatever it is. And you were still on there as like a friend on there.
Whoa.
Yeah, so I sent you a message, and I was like, I'm communicating through my new PlayStation 3.
Wait, would that show up on the 5?
We discovered it didn't because I sent a message through my PS5 and you didn't get it back in time. So I think technically if you logged on to your PS3, it should. I didn't check my PS3 messages because I thought I sent you one too. But yes, but you got a new old PS3, which I believe you said the backwards compatible one, right?
Yeah,
that plays PS2 games.
It's that big old bulky one because
I
used to own one, and then stupidly it crapped out. And instead of trying to fix it, I was like, oh, just chuck it. I don't have the room for this, which I instantly regretted. But I got one for free. Very excited. I like to think the messages I sent just got sent to you in the past.
Yeah.
So yeah, back whatever, you're just like, oh, cool.
They're being stored in my garage right now where my PS3 is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, I don't know if you guys know, but like it can go on the internet. It plays DVDs and Blu-ray, and it's backwards compatible with PS1 and PS2. So I've been mainly playing Devil May Cry 3 on there because that game is just absolute perfection. And it's been 15 years or whatever since I played it. And my goodness, it's like playing it over again. Just such a ridiculous amount of fun. And I don't care what anyone says. It's the best out of the Devil May Cry series. And I've just been falling in love with that. So I played it quite a bit nonstop for a good probably 10 hours over the course of a week, which I don't know where I found the time for it. Stopped. And I need to get back to it at some point. But besides that, I also found that you could download things on the PlayStation 3 still.
Yeah, the store's still available.
What?
You can't buy things directly to it. You have to add money via like not a debit card, like a gift card or wherever else. You basically have to load your PSN account with credits, and then you can use that credit to buy on the PSN store through PS3, which kind of clunky, but I'm more just happy you can still do it.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, it was very clunky. So I found that they had Toy Story 2 on there.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
And I was like, oh, wow, I really got to buy this because I forgot you had a physical copy, which I'm just going to play that now. So I got Toy Story 2, so I ran through a little bit of that, which is really, really fun. And then I learned, I'm sure this is probably, not new for anybody else. For me, it is. I guess when you have an account, right, you have all those games that you used to own still on your account, right? That's how it works?
Yeah, because you technically own the license to them, so you still are entitled to them, yes.
Yeah, so I found, I was like, I was on eBay. I was like, I need to just buy Twisted Metal Black. And then, lo and behold, I looked on my account, and I was like, oh my God, it's still on there. So I was able to download Twisted Metal Black because I used to own it apparently digitally.
Well, did you buy the Twisted Metal 2012 back then?
I did.
Okay,
yeah.
so the original versions of that came with a Twisted Metal Black code, so that you likely own it through that.
Most likely, because I don't recall buying anything back then either. So yeah, Devil May Cry, Toy Story, and then I got into Twisted Metal Black, which was a lot of fun. I wish I could say I played more than that, but I'm a little behind the times.
That's fine. No, those are still great times. I mean, we still play a ton of old games ourselves. It's just,
I was gonna
it's
say,
just the newer stuff kind of, peeks its way through more.
having a backwards compatible system like that is perfect for this podcast because we talk about all the past games.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's convenient because I own, I think, most of the physical copies of Twisted Metal at home. So it's just fun booting all those up and having the system that can do it. But like I said, I'm stuck. I'm behind several generations. Do you guys remember that movie Euro Trip? Where
yes.
there was one point, I think they were in Russia or something, and they got Gilligan's Island super late. It's like one of the villagers or whatever was like, yeah, we're on like this episode of Gilligan's Island or whatever, but they were like several decades behind. Yeah. So that's me with video games. But,
I almost thought you were going to mention Gilligan's Island on the Nintendo, because I remember Euro Trip, but I don't remember much of it, and I thought for some reason you were leaning to like some sort of thing like in Russia they had Gilligan's Island and Nintendo, and
I got this
everyone
new
else is on
NES game.
PS2. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, they were just getting the Gilligan's Islands episode way late, like a decade or two late. So I'm kind of like that with games, but main thing has been Devil May Cry 3. That's the one I'll actually make time for.
That one is a classic. Maybe I'll someday I'll put Ducey through the ringer to cover those games, because those games I could cover. That's one of my favorite series. Much like most anything Capcom has made, Devil May Cry is up there in my top tier echelon.
Yeah, 3 for me is one of the just top handful of games ever made. It was so good.
It's really good. It still holds up. I know it's dated as far as graphics and whatnot, but actually, even the remaster they have still ages really, really well. It's a fantastic game all throughout, and it's obviously, I think Devil May Cry 5 was molded after 3, because 4 to me was good, but not nearly as good as 3.
I thought the same about 4, because when I got the PlayStation 3 back then, I got 4. And I was like, oh, this is going to be the same game, just upgraded.
No,
and it wasn't quite, so I got to try 5 if it's close to 3.
You'll probably hate it because it's new, but I love it.
Yeah, more than likely. Any new game.
I finished 5 and I loved it. It's like, oh, this is so great. Bob's going to hate this.
Probably. And again, to clarify here, I don't really hate any game, really. Just some games just...
Well, I think it's more for you. You're more time pressed, and you won't commit to kind of learning them. Like, you're also more familiar with those games. Where if you play Devil May Cry 3, it still plays like Devil May Cry 3 from 2005, whereas Devil May Cry 5 is from 2019 or until it came out. So you have a little bit of a learning curve to get used to, and I think for you don't necessarily give up. You're just like, all right, I'm kind of over this, so let's go back to what I know.
Oh no, it's giving up.
Yeah. Okay, it's giving up. There you go.
I gave up on Resident Evil 4 remake too. So
yeah, that's preposterous.
Wow.
Yeah, preposterous.
Oh yeah, we got to talk about that at some point.
We will. We have an episode somewhere down the line about disappointing games and worse things.
Yeah, a lot of controversy there.
That's one way of putting it, I suppose. Yeah. Ducey, what have you been playing lately?
Well, it's funny you mentioned Toy Story 2, because I have actually been playing that as well.
It's so good, isn't it?
Yeah, I got it.
It's an underrated platformer of the time. I don't know why more people... I think more people are more fond of it now, but back then it seemed like everyone kind of dismissed it.
I remember renting it on the N64 back then, and I was like, this is surprisingly good for like movie tie-in games at the time. Other than GoldenEye, they were starting to be sort of like rushed out the door, and you wouldn't think that they were going to be good, but this one was. And then I saw it kind of advertised to me on the PS5 dashboard, and I was like, oh, I'll give that a shot. It was in the PS Plus backwards catalog.
It's in the classics catalog.
Yeah. So it was there's a lot of good stuff in the PS1 section. Like I was playing Siphon Filter and Toy Story 2. The Twisted Metals 1 and 2 are in there.
3 and 4 are coming mid-July, actually, as of this recording. So by the time this records, it might be available on there, which is pretty cool, because I'll mention it later, but both those have soundtracks that really shouldn't have made them available for a long time, and I guess they got Rob Zombie back, and they're releasing on PS Plus. But nonetheless, it's really awesome to have more classics on there.
Well, we found recently, because of a certain trailer, that he must be on board for the show. So they were like, hey, while you're at it, could you re-up on the games?
Let's make another deal. Yeah.
But I also got back into, I said I was going to do this, and I'm surprised I followed through, but I got back into Mario and Luigi Brothership. And that game is quite large. I finally beat what I think is what they consider the first boss, first main boss, because you have to light up these like 4 different lighthouses, and then there's going to be like a 5th at some point as like the final boss or something. And so I finally lit up the first major one, and that was a pretty interesting boss fight. It was once you really have to pay attention to the tells, and then you could easily go through and block everything that he's trying to hit you with, or block or dodge. Sometimes you can hit back. But I just really like how involved you are, even though it's a turn-based RPG. And after that, I finally got into and finished Resident Evil 7.
Only how many years has it been out? 8 years.
Yes.
And you finished it, like, I think, probably 4 years after I did. But you've done it.
On my 3rd restart, I think.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
I didn't know you restarted that many times.
Well, like I said, I hadn't even played it since they got the next generation upgrades. And when I started it, I was like, whoa, the title screen is all different. I didn't realize that, like, I think they really went in and polished everything up, didn't they? Like,
well, they had Gold Edition, which was before that, and I know that changed the title screen as well because it was more comprehensive of the DLC. And then they did do the next gen update, which I haven't seen yet because I finished 7 right before they had the next gen version. Like I finished 7 because 8 was coming out, and then shortly after 8 came out, that's when they're starting to redo 7, 2, and 3 for like PS5 and Series X. So that stuff is all new to me, unfortunately. But I've been wanting to go back to 7 and play through it again because you've been playing through it.
Yeah, and I keep pointing out all the stuff that I'm finding for the first time.
Yeah, and I'm like, God, I really would like to play through it again because I did enjoy it when I finally finished it.
I really thought it felt like a classic Resident Evil again, even though it's first person and really leans into the horror. Like, what would you say? The forced cinematics of it. Like, I remember describing it beforehand as like, I don't want to be helpless and have to go through my hand getting chopped off or something like that. But once you get past that, it really does feel like a Resident Evil again. And you have to do inventory management. There's various locations, like a giant house. By the end of the game, it sort of feels a little rushed, though. Like, the locations are a little straightforward. But at that point, you just want it to be over, and you're like, yeah, I want to fight the next boss. I'm a little more superpowered, so I just want to go through and shoot things and beat these guys that have been tormenting you the whole time. Yeah,
and to me, that's kind of how the original games were in some instances as well, because, the end section was always like the lab, and it was really confined to the lab.
Yeah.
But at that point, like, those games always felt like longer than they actually were, even though we eventually got to the point where we could beat them in like a couple hours or a few hours. And Resident Evil 7 is probably the perfect length. Like, I think when I finished it, because I started it twice, it's probably like 8 to 10 hours or something like that on normal. And that's reasonable because, some games overstay their welcome when they're 15, 20 hours long. Like, I would argue, like I said, Silent Hill 2 Remake, which I really loved, but it was a long, long game, and it felt like it was like maybe a little, 3-4 hours too long in my eyes. But Resident Evil 7, I think, is like the optimal, like 10 to 12 hours.
Yeah, I finished it in 10 and a half, I think I showed.
Yeah, see, I think that's like perfect timing. Yeah.
Yeah.
For what I've been playing, so I restarted Forza Horizon 5 after our episode talking about games that I couldn't get into, and I still have complaints about it, right? Like, it's still, I found it on PS Plus, it was on sale, plus I had like $15 in credit from that PS Stars thing you get just by like playing games or buying stuff, So I got for like $30, and I still have the issues with, having to drive everywhere because you can't really avoid that.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But, like, once I've gotten into the races, like, I've committed, like, I just put music on because I could play Spotify through it, so that helps as well. Or I'll have, like, like a podcast or something. And once I get over that fact of just having to drive everywhere for events, I really love the racing because it's really freaking fun, especially the Baja and off-road stuff. Those are some of the more exhilarating races and basically what I've been missing from arcade racers in a long time. Like, it sucks because I hate the open world stuff. I don't hate it, but, I'm less warm to that than I am the other things. And then when I got to the actual racing, like, this is stuff that I wish I could just do the entire time. Like, I don't have to go back and forth for them,
It feels like they've gone back to their influences on dirt and incorporated into Forza.
Yeah, and I would even say that it's taken a lot from Project Gotham Racing as far as like some of the circuits in the cities. It even has like those similar jumps and like the points skill system, which is similar to Kudos.
Oh yeah.
So it definitely feels like there's Project Gotham DNA in this as well. So I'm liking a lot more this shot than I am before. But again, like, my complaints are still there as far as like the minutia of like, okay, this thing's like 4 miles away and I only have one fast travel spot that'll get me like half the length over there, right? So it's one of those things where I have to get over that. But when I'm actually in the racing and the activities, I really am enjoying it. I don't know how much I'll stick to it, but I've played quite a bit lately because it's really easy for me just to pop in, get a few races, or it's like I just kind of tune out and race and have my music on or something like that. So it makes it a little bit easier. The other game I started actually last night that I've been enjoying more than I thought I would so far, at least, is Alone in the Dark. It's a remake. So this has David Harbour. Is it Harbour or Harbour? Harbour. I don't know how to pronounce it. That U always gets me in there. So David Harbour's in this. He's the main character. And there's a female character. I think her name's like Jennifer Comey or something like that. I don't know. I'm not familiar with the actress, but she's another famous actress. Mm-hmm. And it starts off very much like Resident Evil. And of course, it's a remake. So it's rooted in the original Alone in the Dark, where you're a private investigator as David Harbour. You're hired by this guy's niece who's at this sort of mental hospital. And she says she hasn't heard from him in a while, and there's something weird going on with the stuff he's saying, like the mental hospital is involved in cults and all this weird stuff. And you get there, and within the first, I'd say, hour or so, like you introduce sort of this alternate voodoo world. It's kind of weird because you find out that the uncle has this talisman where he made a deal with like this dark figure to go between worlds, like these realities. So there's that whole gimmick of it's almost like Silent Hill, the movie, in a sense where the environment it's sort of flipped in a switch, and like you'll be like in a mental institution room, and all of a sudden, now you're in like this inferno burning area for some reason. It looks really freaking good. I'm really impressed with how it looks and the sound design. Now, I got this because I bought it on GameFly, and I just hadn't started it, but it was a PS Plus game last month, and I've really been enjoying it so far. Like it's definitely got its Resident Evil roots. Maybe some people might complain it's a little too close to old Resident Evil, like down to like using keys to open doors and whatnot.
Yeah, but I mean, Alone in the Dark. Resident Evil was inspired by the first Alone in the Dark.
It was.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that it's kind of the reverse now. But I like that, though. Like, I don't mind. Like, this is actually what I want. My only complaint is, like, the guy walks really, really slow. It's either sprint or walk. And sprint's really fast and it alerts enemies. And walk is really slow. But so far, I've been enjoying it. I put in, like, a couple hours last night just to kind of try it out. And I ended up enjoying it more than I thought I would. So I'm really curious to see where that goes. I don't know. You haven't played this one yet, Ducey, have you? Because it said you played it, but I imagine you probably just claimed it on PS Plus.
Oh, yeah. I was, in fact, going to question myself, because when you said it came out for that, I was like, man, I hope I picked it up before it might have gone. But... You
should now, because it's going to expire, as of this recording, on Monday, I think it is.
Okay, yeah. I'm pretty sure I got it, but I'll have to double check.
Yeah, it's if you have the app, you just claim it on there. But it's worthwhile, because it's definitely, I mean, at worst, you can borrow my copy, too. But
yeah.
It's easier if you claim it that way, yeah. All right, guys, so I guess now is a better time more than ever. Let's talk some Twisted Metal. All right, guys, we're here at our much anticipated episode. At least I've been anticipating this, but we're talking the Twisted Metal series. Bob, you and I have a lot of fondness for this series. We grew up on this. I know the story that I mentioned on the podcast before is that we bought Destruction Derby at our favorite store, Kmart's. And then our dad was pretty upset that 2-player was only System Link. And then we ended up returning it to Kmart, which was surprisingly able to let us do that, because usually they're pretty strict about returning open games. Mm-hmm. I'm sure our dad probably said like it's defective, which it wasn't.
Well, that's what you had to say back then. I don't know if you guys remember, but it was so cumbersome returning anything at any store.
Yeah, like, now they don't care.
Yeah, no, they'll just take it with no questions. Back then, you had to like sign stuff.
You had to make a whole story. Yep. So yeah, my dad he returned Destruction Derby, and then Bob and I saw this ice cream truck with this flaming clown head on it, and we're like, I don't know what this is. It says Twisted Metal, but we're buying that. And that's really where it started for us with Twisted Metal, was the beginning of the series was on PS1. So what we're going to do is we're kind of going to talk about each of the games in the series. We're going to kind of go through the reviews, a little bit of development history on there, and then we'll kind of go through what all of us thought of each game. Bob and I have played through every single one of these, some more than others, especially some of the later ones. Oh, yeah. And Ducey, it's great because you have some familiar with, I say, the earlier ones, and some maybe with like Black, and then a little bit less on the difference. So you have more of a fresh perspective in some instances.
Yeah, I came in and out of the series, and Black is probably the last one I have a ton of playtime on.
Yeah, I feel like that's when you probably played the most, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And just to, I guess, sort of set the table, so to speak, we could talk a little bit about the show that was unexpectedly awesome. So the show debuted July 2023. So the next season, which, much like as is common these days, 2 years later, we have season 2.
Finally.
Yeah, so season 2 is out July 31st, 2025. I'm really excited for it. I was very shocked that the show ended up being as good as it was because the initial trailer was pretty freaking terrible. And then once I watched it, like it took, I don't know, an episode or two to get into. I was like, all right, I'm sold. Like this is a really fun show.
Yeah, I just watched it recently, so I haven't had as long of a time to wait between seasons. And I'd say I was kind of hooked right from the beginning. The reason I waited so long was because I just didn't have Peacock for the longest time.
Oh, that's surprising.
Yeah, but when I saw the trailer, I thought, okay, this looks bad, but also it's a video game property going into like movies or TV, so you can't expect the bar to be too high.
Yeah, I figured, at minimum I'd be entertained, right? And that's what I expected at minimum. And then when I watched it, I was like, wow, this was really great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people felt that way by that first trailer. It looked cheap. It looked like cheesy. It looked like they just dove right into just the comedy of things, and it didn't look good at all. And then, some of the clips that they released too were just like, this is really silly. Like,
they picked like the worst clips to show for that show because nothing really got me excited. It almost looked stupid and cheesy.
Who were they trying to advertise to kids? Because kids definitely couldn't be watching this.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah, but it ended up being a big surprise. Like one of my favorite shows of the last few years. It was just a ton of fun, and then they didn't just kind of like wink at you with each video game reference. They just kind of baked it all in there really seamlessly.
Yeah, there's a lot of references. There's stuff that I definitely caught, and then I sent a video, I think probably to both of you guys, but there was a video that even broke it down even further. Like there's stuff where like in one of the earlier episodes, Sweet Tooth has that little paper bag that he's dying for, right?
Yeah.
And that directly ties into his ending with Twisted Metal 1, right? So this is definitely made with some sort of passion, and like you could see all the little Easter eggs and all the references, and that's also what made it so great. Like even in the first episode, I think it's so stupid and blatant, but he's driving his car and doing like a U-turn or something, and then like the PS1 game goes over his windshield. Yeah, it's so dumb, but it's just so great to see that because it shows that there was some care put into it. So if you haven't seen the show, definitely give it a shot. It may not be for everybody, but chances are if you're listening to this episode and this series, you'll probably enjoy it just as much as we did.
Yeah, it struck that perfect balance that some of the post-Black games did, where they balanced that serious kind of joke, kind of those two opposite things together.
Yeah, it's like a cynical macabre or something like that.
Yeah. So they did that just so well, and it was just so much fun. And then again, it's fun enjoying the game so much and being able to watch it to where you can catch these little details, but they don't just put it right front and center. So unless you really, are deep into the games, you were going to miss it completely.
Yeah, it's a treat for everyone because it's not blatant to people who aren't clued in about what it is, and then people who do know about it are like, oh yeah, that's really great.
Yeah,
it feels kind of like the Mario movie, the most recent one.
Yeah. There's a lot of Easter eggs in there, little nuggets of info that you could pick apart, whereas everyone else might it's just passive, like they'll notice it and appreciate it.
Yeah. They're like, for the kids just like that it's bright and flashy and cartoony. And for those of us that grew up with it, we're like, oh, look at that, and look at that, and look at that.
Yeah, and the trailer for season 2, you sent me that Bob pretty recently, and I sent it to Ducey after because I didn't see anything about this, and that just ramped up my excitement even more because they have Rob Zombie in the soundtrack. It looks like a Twisted Metal game down to, they have all the characters are there now because the show is really about who becomes Roadkill, more or less. So there's not a whole lot of Twisted Metalness necessarily. It's sort of like a prequel to the tournament. And once you get over that and you realize they're like, oh, this is really great. And then season 2 looks like it's going to kick off the tournament. So it's perfect.
Yep.
So definitely keep an eye out for that. But where the series began, it all started in November 1995. So the PS1 had come out around September 1995, if I recall, somewhere around there. So this is a really early PS1 game. You could definitely tell when you play through this. So this game was developed by Single Track and produced by Sony Interactive Studios America, and it was published by Sony Interactive Entertainment, also known as SIE, which was founded in 1993 by Sony to push video games. So they had this whole publisher division that was solely made to publish these games. This game was codenamed Firestorm at the beginning. And then it was also, what else? They had a couple other names. It was Urban Assault, Cars and Rockets, which I thought was really silly. And one of the cooler names, High Octane. I thought that was actually probably the most clever name out of the bunch as far as their early ones.
And I want to say that was another Easter egg in the show.
It was.
Yeah.
So they folded that in, and then also, we'll get to it later, but the original endings that they filmed for the game, because they're text endings in the final game, but before that they filmed these goofy FMV scenes.
Yeah,
they still referenced it as High Octane, which is also fun.
Oh
yeah. So Single Track, the development company, started in 1994 by these former employees of Evans and Sutherland. They're like this computer graphics firm back then. And tester and designer David Jaffe, who some of you may or may not know, but he's notable because of Twisted Metal. But also, he originated the God of War series way back on PS2. That was like the game he sort of designed beforehand.
Oh, that's why his name sounds familiar.
Exactly, yeah. So he had a lot of prominence back then. It's kind of faded since then because his games haven't been as good. Like he released, I think it was called Calling All Cars on PS3, and that was just like a weaker game. I think he did Drawn to Life, which was like this really cool looking first or third person shooter that looked like illustrations on like drawing paper. So it was kind of a cool idea, but no one cared about it. It really feels like he peaked with Twisted Metal and God of War. So he was at the helm for this one. He was assigned as the lead designer, and then Jaffe with a designer named Mike. I think it's Giam. I don't know what. It's one of those things. And a guy from Evans and Sutherland named Alan Becker. They were contracted by Sony and ENS, which was Evans and Sutherland, to create a 3D game for PS1. So 3D games were still very, very, very new at this time. So I think that's one of those things when you're transitioning from the 16-bit to 32-bit, Sony was trying to get full bore into 3D because they want to flex the power of the PS1. And this was one of the games that they wanted to showcase all the 3D power. And I think that's totally fair for the time. Because also, in addition to this, they also contracted Warhawk, which I doubt both of you have played. Did you play a demo about back then?
Probably did. Don't remember any bit of it.
It's a cool space shooter kind of thing.
Nope. I was thinking helicopters. But it's not that.
No, it's not. No, it's like I don't know how to describe it. I guess it's like a futuristic jet looking thing. It's a really cool and impressive looking PS1 game though. So this, along with Twisted Metal, were the two games that they contracted with them. So the premise for Twisted Metal started when Jaffe and team were on the 405 interstate, and they were joking about being in a traffic jam. And they thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could just use guns and missiles and all the other cars? Which was like, I'm sure we've all had that thought before. I don't know. And Jaffe said, we had these amazing visions of this Michael Bay or Michael Mann action movie going down the 405 freeway in LA with car combat out of Mad Max and a potpourri of explosions, which I thought was a really fun phrase to use. It makes perfect sense. And the idea was pitched to programmers, and the director suggested that they do a pizza delivery simulation, and that was quickly shot down. And Jaffe also pushed back and said, no, we should probably lean on the more on the car combat stuff.
Man, could you imagine Crazy Taxi with guns
and pizzas?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the development for this game started around spring 1994, and they had a pretty tight deadline of 12 months. Now, we think about that today when some games are, they spend like half a decade, 10 years. Duke Nukem Forever was like 15 or something like that. It's pretty wild to think that they have 12 months to ideate a game, design it, build it, code it, obviously, all the art stuff, QA it, and then get it to release in a non-buggy and a non-messy state. So 12 months is pretty strict, but nonetheless, they were able to do it. And part of that's because they got $2 million in advance royalties, so they had a little bit bigger budget. And again, we're talking about budgets with $2 million back then. I think Grand Theft Auto 6 is rumored to be $1 billion to develop, which is ridiculous to me. So they developed Twisted Metal 1 with about $2 million. GTA 6, $1 billion. Really nuts. And that $2 million was also supposed to cover Warhawk, which, by the way, was also called Red Mercury. I thought that was kind of a cool gimmick on there. And Twisted Metal. Let's see. So, I mentioned the live action endings. So that was a big thing. So the live action endings were filmed for this game, but they eventually were scrapped because a lot of the dev team thought that it might be too offensive. I don't know if you guys got a chance to look at these, because these were also included, which we'll talk about later, in Twisted Metal Head On as like bonus features. They were just added there. That game was like a bit of a director's cut. It's like, here's all this stuff from this history of the series and all these cool little tidbits, but they had all the endings they had filmed, and they are just hilariously bad because you could tell they made this with like a handy cam and like a super low budget.
Oh yeah, I've seen them multiple times. They're entertaining with just how awful they are.
Yeah.
And it's just really funny. It's It's funny they didn't put them in there because they're too offensive, and not because these are just awful.
Well, I could see at the time though, because you have to frame it to like in 1994, 95. That's probably what was okay to publish because there was a ton of terrible FMV games, right? And they all looked pretty bad.
And they just wanted to put that on a disc and say, "Hey, look at
full
what
motion
Nintendo
video.
can't do."
Exactly. But beyond that, like they are pretty offensively stupid in some instances. Like it's just the ones I saw. I rewatched a few before this, and it was like they almost always involve some sort of shooting with like machine guns. There's like these really ripped guys that look like they're at a pit fighter. There's women in bikinis and scantily clad stuff, and Calypso has like this crazy burnt face, which is actually kind of terrifying looking even now.
Yeah.
But it's garbage. Like I actually am glad that they didn't put these endings in there because I feel like it would have cheapened the game a little bit more, even though the game's like really tongue in cheek to begin with,
Yeah, I can imagine us playing it back then though, in 95 eyes.
Oh, absolutely. We would have loved it.
Yeah, and we would have seen these FMVs and be like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
And we would have spent all of our time trying to get the next one. Like,
Yeah.
I must have seen these when they first finally came out, maybe on Head On, and then somebody put them on YouTube because I had this sort of Mandela effect that they were in the original. And when I saw that there was the text options instead, I was like, oh wait, I do remember the text options now. That is so weird. I thought both. I thought they stayed in.
At the same time, like it makes sense for you to have that kind of Mandela effect because again, like so many games had those FMV movies in them at the time, so it makes perfect sense that you probably just connected to because it looked appropriate for the time. It would have made perfect sense, right?
And I think Black had CG endings.
It did.
Yeah. So I must have been sort of like conflating the two.
Maybe. Yeah. So if you're not familiar with the Twist the Metal game and the format, the idea is that Calypso, who's like this regular guy who in some instances might be supernatural, but he's sort of like this, I guess, sort of a gangbanger, entrepreneur kind of guy. But he set up this tournament, and in the first game, it's the 10th Twist the Metal tournament. And the competition here is that you can, it's basically open to everybody, and all these racers and drivers, they're there because they want to get their one wish from Calypso, which can be anything in the world. I mean, literally anything you can imagine. And I think that's also kind of a great twist because what we'll find with the endings throughout this series is that they always feel like they have sort of an ironic twist, like the Twilight Zone or
like
Creep Show. Yeah, the monkey's paw thing, right? And I think that's also what makes the ending so charming and goofy is like they could wish for anything and they might get it, but there's also some sort of twist that really just screws them in some way, right? Like it's almost like biting off more than you can chew.
Yep.
And the first game here has, I don't know how many racers we got, but we have, I don't know, there's like 8 to 10 of them. There's like Sweet Tooth, who's the sort of the titular character we all know. He's in this crazy action truck that has pink polka dots on it, and he has like a flaming clown head on top. I think that's one of the most iconic character designs in gaming ever because you don't really know who the driver is. You just recognize the car itself. It's almost like seeing like a, I don't know, like some sort of famous race car, something like that, except it's this very morbid serial killer clown. And there's Yellow Jacket who drives a cab. Darkseid's in like this big rig kind of truck. Thumper is like this this guy in like this pink Cadillac looking thing,
A lowrider.
Yeah, like a lowrider. And all these characters again have all their different motivations, and they're all basically striving to kill every other person in this competition so they get their one wish.
They even try to throw in a little bit of backstory for the characters, which is it feels like a fighter, like when Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat tries to throw in stories where like Yellow Jacket, come to find out, is Sweet Tooth's dad.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I think that's really cool that they have that because the character select screen, it's really basic and nondescript in the first game, but it's cool because it does have a little bit of backstory, like you get info, I think it is, or something like that, and it'll give you like kind of a reason why they're into competition. And there's also like this really goofy portrait. I think the first game also had the live action
they
did, of like actors, right? So they're all just like dressed up in these really cheap costumes and meant to look just distraught and gritty and everything, but it works. Like I think it kind of fits with the theme of the game.
Well, I think it's kind of the same way with like Mortal Kombat, how you had a lot of those ripoffs that came afterwards. Besides not being as good technically as Mortal Kombat was, but you always remembered the Mortal Kombat characters. You never remembered any of the characters from the knockoffs. And the same thing with Twisted Metal, where you you remember all the characters, even the silly ones, but if you plucked one of the random Twisted Metal knockoffs that came off, you're not remembering any of those characters.
Yeah, if anything, you might say that looks like a Twisted Metal car.
Yeah, exactly. So like, you remember like Yellow Jacket and all of them, Sweet Tooth especially, Mr. Grimm,
Outlaw. I was always Outlaw in all of them.
Yeah, my dad really loved Outlaw, and he loved Spectre in the first game because they had that sort of white Corvette kind of car.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was a big fan of that, yeah. So what we'll do is we'll get into reviews for each of the games here because I think, for my purposes at least, I think it's always fun to get some context for what people were thinking at the time from magazines or whatever else. It wasn't, this is pre-internet, so it's not like we have a bunch of forum threads to kind of go through. So I got a couple reviews here. One's from EGM and GamePro. So EGM, for the first Twisted Metal game in issue 77, they gave this way higher scores than I expected, to be frank with you guys. They gave it a 9.5, a 9, a 9, and 9.5. The best feature was mindless destruction. Worst feature was small two-player levels. They said the graphics are outstanding and each level gets better. They also said that, they said that the game has one job and it does it really, really well, and there's nothing much like it. And one reviewer said that the graphics weren't that special and the sound isn't amazing either. But nonetheless, he still gave it really high marks. I think that's a really, really amazing score.
Yeah, I would side with that second guy, but also still give it high marks. Like,
yeah.
It would be very much like, what are you guys thinking? But at the same time, it was just so much fun to play, you didn't care.
It was, and I think we'll talk about impressions soon too, but it's like, this game, as far as visuals, doesn't age that well because everything kind of looks like a cardboard cutout nowadays, and like the cars look like they're just kind of smart cars sliding on a track. But it doesn't matter because back then it looked incredible. Like this was, again, coming from Super Nintendo, Genesis, all those. This was a literal generational leap into the next generation of games.
I was surprised how easy it was to get back into the controls because it's weird that like square is go, and then but it was just so easy to remember that if somebody's behind you, you can do a quick
turn,
a quick 180, and then start firing back at them, and it was almost like second nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then GamePro, issue 79, February 1996. These are all out of 5. They gave graphics a 3.5, sound a 3, control 3.5, fun factor a 4. They said the graphics are a mixed bag with great details but static crowds and texture warping when speeding. Mm-hmm. And overall, they said it was really fun despite its flaws. So both those reviews, I think I can totally agree with, especially for the time. But did you guys get to revisit this one at all?
Yeah. Now it's easy to say the graphics, they don't look particularly good, but but back then though, like you said, going from Super Nintendo to Genesis to this, to where you just have these big maps, you can go around, do all kinds of things, let alone shoot a bunch of different weapons, missiles, machine guns, all this, the special attacks too that everybody had.
That's the big thing is I think that's what also shined about this game is that each character was really distinct. And also they had a special that emphasized like the power of their car in some way, right? Like Spectre had like this missile that could go through streets and walls, right? And that works because he's apparently a ghost, an apparition driving the car. Right?
And the cool thing too about the fact that each driver was so unique is that you could find the one that suited how you wanted to play. Mm-hmm. And I think it was the same for you, but I always got Mr. Grimm.
100% Mr. Grimm.
Yeah,
I was Mr. Grimm through the entire series.
Yeah, same here.
Because he was like the badass on the motorcycle and he had the skull special.
Yep, and it was always the most powerful special.
Yeah,
and then
that
the
was
speed.
crazy.
Yeah, the speed was always the most fun part where you just glide in and out through everywhere you wanted. But if you didn't want to do that, you could also go with like Warthog, who was just a tank, or if you want somewhere in between, you can do Sweet Tooth, who's kind of mostly well-rounded with everything. But that was also a big selling point for me. And even now is that you can still find each character that suits you best, and it's still to me, it's still a lot of fun. Obviously, there's a lot of nostalgia that goes with that. Mm-hmm. But to me, it still plays just fine. Obviously, it's dated and kind of...
Yeah. I think if you go into this, because again, this one is available on PS Plus, so you can play it on your PS5, which is great. But if you go into it, you do have to sort of or expect that the controls are really loose, but it also helps it because, like you mentioned, Bob, it helps when you do like the quick turns or the
things are frantic.
180s.
Like you don't want a slow, clunky car from like San Francisco Rush or something. You want to be able to whip around, like you said with Mr. Grimm, get in and get out because he has very little armor.
Yeah, he has the lowest defense, I think, in the entire game, which makes sense because he's on a motorcycle, so he has very little protection to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ducey, what did you... So, I know you played this a little bit, maybe a little bit when we were kids, because you probably played at my house.
Every
and Bob
time,
and I played it, right?
every time I went over to your house. But I never owned it. Once I got a PlayStation, I never owned it. I just borrowed it from you, or we would play it over there. And to me, like, I know Resident Evil 2 sold me on the PlayStation, but when I think PlayStation, I think Twisted Metal first and foremost. I think Sweet Tooth is like the PlayStation mascot.
Yeah, he's almost sort of their unofficial mascot when they really didn't have any. Yeah.
These graphics that they talked about, sure, they're kind of ugly, but to me, it was like the difference between PlayStation and N64 was like PlayStation was gritty and more mature, and you didn't care what it looked like as long as it played really fun. And whereas like Mario 64 or something was very polished, but single player and that sort of thing. So yeah, this for me, I always think of Twisted Metal as like it should have been the pack-in game or something back then.
I wish it was, because this was definitely when they stopped packing in games. I very much remember that. Like when I got my PS1, I was like, oh, this doesn't come with a game. Why? What is this? And now it's like, that's normal now. No consoles really come with games unless you pay a premium on them. But yeah, it should have been a packing game, because I think you can fault this game with its flaws. Like I did see texture warping, right? But it's like so many PS1 games had it, especially back then. And also, I have to remark again, like this was a very early PS1 game. So again, 3D was very new. I thought this game looked probably mind-blowing at the time. And I'm sure my dad did, because he was, he's used to playing Atari. And he played this game. He's like, oh, wow, this is pretty incredible. Like it's a 3D space. And also, like Bob mentioned too, like the scale of the game was a lot different than what we're used to as well. Like you start off in the first level, which is really small. It's like this big old sort of like monster truck arena. And then you go to different levels. Like there's a freeway free-for-all, which I thought was fun. There's like a big old river park rumble. There's Assault on Cyberbia, which that name always stuck out to me as a kid when you're like in the suburbs.
Yeah.
I don't know why it is, because what year was this supposed to take place? 2005. So they thought they would have like this cyber suburbia in 2005.
We're getting there, I think.
Yeah.
We're getting there. And then the final level is rooftop combat. And basically each level you start out where I think the first level you fight like 2 or 3 racers, 2 or 3 drivers. Is it one?
Only one other guy, just to give you a feel for the controls.
So there you go. Yeah, so it's really just supposed to be like a primer on how to use the controls, some of the weapons in here. Some of the weapons we can mention too. There's like a fire missile, which is very direct. It's like your basic missile that does damage. I think there's homing in this one as well. There's a homing one early on. So there's a whole bunch of different things you can use in your arsenal. You always have a machine gun as well.
Little landmines.
Oh, that's right. The landmines are in here, which are great. You can place them behind you. So this game has a lot of options for what you want to do. I'd say that, and this is a flaw with every game in the series, but it sucks when the AI is literally just out to get you and only you, right?
Yeah.
Because the idea is you're supposed to outlast everyone else. And the later levels, you get up to like, I think 6 or 7 racers against you or something like that. And it can get real freaking crazy. I'm sure back then, Bob and I probably beat the game with every single character, but it was harder with some characters for sure.
I played the first 2 games, and we'll talk about 2 in a little bit, but like on the first one, I only got to about the 4th mission or the 4th map. And on the second game, I got to the second one, because the second game doesn't start you off with that little easy one. They're like, you've already played the first.
Yeah.
So I barely survived the first game or the first match, and you have lives in this, and then they carry over. So by the time I got to the second one, I had maybe 1 or 0 lives left, and I was like, how did we play this back then?
That's what I understand. Like, we got really good at it, and I don't know if we got cheats later or something, but we were really, really good for a little bit, and then now I play, I'm like, crap, this is really hard.
Yeah, we had to have, at least me, I think I had to have at least gotten cheats back then, because I can't imagine like a 5 or 6-year-old being like, yeah, I got to the end, no problem.
Yeah, because even now I'm like, I don't understand how we did this. I can get through some levels fine, then, like you said, Ducey, when those lives start running out, because I forget there's lives.
Yeah.
You're like, oh shit, I can't just roam around like I want to. I have to actually have to play and hope I can kill everyone.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember points where I would just be just speeding around the map for what felt like half an hour, because I was pretty much dead. I might as well was getting up at that point. But I would just try to hang on and just try to shoot with the machine gun what I could without getting hit, which was always impossible.
Because it does suck. You also had limited health pickups in here too. Like you had these little gates that you could go up and then would charge your car up, so to speak.
Did they refill, or once it was one use?
I don't think they did in the first game.
Okay.
I think the first game was one and done, which sucks because you really had to ration them off. It's like, all right, I'm almost dead. I have to use it now.
Because there were only like 2 in the level.
Yeah, there's not many. Not many. It's pretty brutal. Yeah. All right, guys, I guess we could start with Twisted Metal 2. So, of course, with every success, because Twisted Metal 1 sold quite a bit. It ended up selling around 500,000 copies by 1996. And then the first game eventually sold over 1 million copies, and it later became a PS1 Greatest Hits, which was this fantastic line of games that were like million sellers, I think, or 500,000 sellers at least, and they were $20. That doesn't happen these days anymore. They don't have player selects or Greatest Hits. We now have to pay full price or wait for a deep discount. So a little bit different program these days.
They have a ton of seasonal sales.
Yeah, which help a lot. I mean, those things go dirt cheap anyway, except for Nintendo, of course.
Yeah.
But, yeah. It was nice to have Greatest Hits. So Twisted Metal 2 would release just a year later. So it released November 8th, 1996, which was around your birthday, Bob. So I'm sure, I don't remember if we bought this for your birthday or what we did. I don't remember what we did.
I vaguely remember. I don't know if you remember. There was a period where I had one birthday where I was just going through it was like a dozen different things at the warehouse, and then Pop,
I do remember you
yep,
returning
and I was
stuff.
like, oh, I don't really like this, and Pop would take it back and get something else, and I'd be like, I don't like this one either.
They're very generous.
Yeah, so he went back it had to have been at least 10 times. I think Twisted Metal 2 might have been one of those games where I got it, and I was like, maybe something else, and then they brought it back to get something else.
That's what I thought, because I know we had this for a little bit, and then I don't know what happened to it or anything. I eventually bought it way later and everything, but I remember having to rent this at least a few times. One of our friends had it, or our friend Chris, I think he owned it.
Yep.
He brought it over. But this one is true because this one's one of the more fondly loved of the whole series, and yet it's the one that we arguably have the least experience with, even though we played it a ton, but not as much as 1 or even 3 and 4. But this game was largely similar to the first game. It's just, it kind of does what sequels do, where it iterated on what was already successful and made it even better and a little bit more polished. So with this, because of the success of the first game, they were allowed to have 16 months to develop this. So basically, as soon as this game, before even Twisted Metal 1 was released, they basically greenlit this one and said, go ahead and work on 2, because I guess they got a good feel for what it was. So a lot of the same team developed it and worked on it. And this was also the subtitle, which I guess it's what it's called on the PC version. It's called Twisted Metal World Tour, which I feel like that was a trend back then too, where games would have their main game, and then the next step would always be like, well, let's expand this to the world. You go all over the world for a racing game or something
Like
else.
Cruising USA.
Like Cruising USA, Cruising World, right? Or Cruising Exotica, which, did they have universe levels, or I don't remember if it was galactic levels.
That was like, you went to Atlantis and things like that.
Yeah.
And San Francisco Rush was a city, and then it went to the full states.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that was like the thing back then, is like, we'll start off small, we'll expand to the world tier. So the story here is very similar to the first game. It's Calypso is once again hosting Twisted Metal tournament on the anniversary, and the last tournament destroyed LA. So now he's decided, well, I guess he'll destroy the world, and we'll have an event at every sort of landmark in the world. And you could see, like, there's Paris in here, Egypt's in here. I think the Statue of Liberty is also in here, which I believe if you shoot her, she reveals like she has like a stone bikini on or something like that, right?
Very pixelated.
Very pixelated, yeah. But back then it was like, oh, that's really cool,
I remember, it's funny that you guys didn't seem to have this one much, because I vividly remember playing this a lot, and you could topple the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, I think you had to use like the rolling bombs or something like that.
I don't remember, but yeah, I do remember that coming down, and it made like this ramp way.
Yeah. So that was one of the cool things about this game that they really ramped up on, was making these discoveries in each of the levels, because they all had some sort of Easter egg and users like power ups or some super weapon. I think this had environmental weapons as well.
Oh yeah.
So this game also has a lot of returning characters. So the returning characters are Roadkill, Hammerhead, Outlaw 2. It's a different driver, but it's Outlaw, the same idea. It's a police car. Warthog, Mr. Grimm, Thumper, and Spectre. And the new introductions, I think, are all really strong, except for one. There's Twister, who's this girl in like this F1 indie looking car, which I thought was one of the cooler characters they introduced.
Yeah.
Mr. Slam, who's like this construction worker, and like this, he had some sort of construction vehicle, which I thought was really, I didn't care for construction cars and like characters, so I thought he was like the weakest of the new bunch.
Well, wasn't he kind of slow too?
He was, so he just wasn't very fun to play.
Yeah, and his special was to like pick up the other player and slam them.
That was the coolest part, is he would pick them up and just slam them over and over and over. And it was really cool looking.
For me, I never liked getting in close to other cars, so I always picked the ones that had the specials that were like the homing missiles from far away or
exactly,
something.
Yeah, because in here you didn't want to be close up most of the time, yeah. Another character they introduced was Axel, who was probably the coolest design in this game. Like, he's this guy who has wheels for arms, because it's almost like a torture device or something. I don't know what you'd call it. And then there's also Shadow, who is like a hearse. And there's Grasshopper, who's like this little doom buggy kind of thing with a girl who's who you later find out to be Calypso's daughter. So this game, like I said, it really just expands what it already did on Twisted Metal 1, and interestingly enough, it made Sweet Tooth a secret character. He's a boss and a secret character, which I thought was really weird.
That, when I started Twisted Metal 2 on this replay, and he wasn't anywhere in the thing, first of all, I remembered that, and secondly, I was like, that is a bold choice.
It's really weird. You have your main character be unlockable on there, you know? And there's also, I mentioned Grasshopper, Sweet Tooth and Minion, and then they introduced a new boss in here called Dark Tooth, who was Sweet Tooth's dad, which was basically Sweet Tooth, but in like a much bigger truck. I don't know if you guys remember that at all.
Oh, yeah. It was gigantic.
Yeah. So, I guess we'll get into some reviews here. So, EGM, issue 90, they gave this an 8, 8.5, 8.5, and an 8. Best feature, lots of cars. Worst feature, polygon breakup again, which is a persistent problem with PS1 games. They said that the sequel to EGM's Game of the Year was every bit as good as the original and more. The new characters and secrets were really great. The theme cities were an improvement, but reviewers were critical that the graphics engine didn't really get any big upgrades, which I think's fair. Like, this looks and feels like Twisted Metal 1, but like a little bit better looking, but not a whole lot. Like, it really just feels like a minor step up, right? And one reviewer said that they weren't a fan of the original, but really love the sequel. So I think there's something we said there.
That's weird, because it's basically the same.
Yeah. GamePro issue 100, they gave graphics a 3.5, sound a 4.5, control 4.5, fun factor of 5, and Major Mike, which I believe he reviewed basically all the Twisted Metal games. He liked this one a lot more than the original. He says it plays better and the levels are far more interesting. The 2-player mode's fun, but outside of the cars, the graphics are the weakest part, and bland cityscapes with texture warping. So, again, like, it's weird to think of how high those reviews were for the first game. Like, you know, actually the game they're probably pretty similar, but EGM thought it was a little bit less so. I actually think this is a really good sequel comparatively. Yeah. Like, I think it's a proper step up. Maybe it's not as big as you'd hope, but it does everything a lot better. I think it's a lot more polished because they probably have more time with it, and, you know, developed a whole game before this, so they kind of knew what they were doing at this point.
It's wild that, like, the first one got Game of the Year, and then the second one was only a year later, where we just mentioned Grand Theft Auto 6 is how many years after 5?
Yeah, it's going on 12 now.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be 13 by the time 6 comes out.
And then the second one came out, and it was bigger and better. It wasn't like a cheap cash in.
Yeah, they actually had put some thoughtful improvements into it. Like, all the levels are different. They're much more larger and expansive, and, you know, obviously with the different world themes, you do a lot more. Like, you mentioned the Eiffel Tower and being able to blow that up, which, you know, probably wouldn't happen these days.
Nope.
But you could do that back then, and that was like one of the Easter egg gimmicks. But I think back then when I played this, I was excited for it, and I probably borrowed this from our friend Chris more than anything else after we didn't have our copy, you know?
Yeah, I think so. And then, I liked it. I didn't like it the same way I liked 1, because I didn't get a chance to replay this one, but I remember the reason why it was kind of lower on my list of where it falls on the Twisted Metal kind of ladder. It was the only game where I felt like I didn't have a whole lot of control playing it. I just felt like I was just driving on ice the whole time.
It's super loose.
Yeah.
It's really, really loose. I think you have to get used to that, because I found like tapping left and right helps. Mm-hmm. Because again, like, I think the whole impetus here is that you're supposed to turn on a dime in case you're getting shot from behind. But it also sucks because that means it's hard to go straight. The opposite's true for that as well.
Yeah, so I didn't have a particularly great time with that back then. And, you know, I played, I think, like a handful of years ago. So as far as where Twisted Metal games go, it's not my favorite one. I think most people, they view it as like one of the top games, right?
They do. This feels like it's the one that people always point to in the early quadrilogy, as I'll call it, where they always say this is the peak. I don't know if I guess, like, arguably could say it's the peak, but it's not for me, because I still feel like 1 and I even, you know, 4 is less worse than I thought. But I feel like 1 and 2, you could contend either one as like the top for those first 4 games. But it definitely feels like people love 2 more than anything else.
Yeah.
I could see, like, if I had played 1 and 2 back then, back to back, if I had owned them, I probably would have been frustrated with 2, because 1 ramped you up slowly. Like, the first level was only 1 opponent. The second level, I think, was only 3 other opponents.
Yeah.
And then you got maybe 5 others. And then this one, they start you out at 5. And then every level seems to have like that many. And with those loose controls, you are just constantly getting bombarded.
Yeah, and also what is difficult is not every, you know, there's very little auto aim with most of the weapons, with that, with that section of homing, obviously. So that's what sucks too, is like you're trying to whip around while shooting and aiming, and you have no cursor, so you're just hoping that where you're aiming and shooting that the enemy won't move in time.
Yeah.
So that also adds to the difficulty here too. I think it definitely made it harder because of people who probably played the first game. So I still love this game, but it's just I just feel like they made it too much for people who played the hell out of the first game, because it's hard right off the bat, like you mentioned. It's pretty brutal. Yeah. Before we get to Twist Metal 3, I just want to call out a few games that came out before it, because as anything that's sort of successful or starts a trend, there's going to be sort of knockoffs and imitators. So just a small list of games that came out. There's Interstate 76 that came out in 1997. There's Streets of SimCity, which is a really weird Twist Metal clone on PC. It's a really ugly game, but it exists nonetheless. Red Asphalt, which is a sequel to Rock and Roll Racing, which I didn't know about. There's Rogue Trip Vacation 2012, which I remember playing a demo back then, because I was like, what is this? It looks exactly like Twisted Metal. And what had happened is that the developers of the original Twisted Metal games 1 and 2 single track were bought out by GT Interactive, and this is the game that they made. So they basically made a Twisted Metal knockoff, even though they made the first Twisted Metal games.
Oh, they went to compete with like the new people who were doing 3 and 4?
Pretty much. Well, this came out before 3, I think. So it was, what was it? Rogue Trip was 98. So yeah, it was right before Twisted Metal 3. So basically, while Twisted Metal 3 was being developed, Rogue Trip was also being made. I need to track down a copy because, again, I only played the demo from the PlayStation magazine, and I knew it as a car combat game, but I didn't care much for it at all because it felt like Twisted Metal, like we talked about earlier. It's just a bit of a knockoff.
You were like, what's this cheap wannabe?
Yeah. And arguably, I'm sure it's probably better than the next thing we're going to talk about, which is Twisted Metal 3. So this came out in November 1998. This was developed by 99 Studios, which at this point, like I mentioned, Single Track had been bought out, and as a result of being bought out, they can't make games for Sony, essentially. They can only make them for GT Interactive, and Twisted Metal was a Sony property, so therefore they couldn't develop on a Sony property. So that led to 99 being formed, which was originally Sony Interactive Studios America, and they originally produced the first 2 games. So they did have some history with the original games, but as a result of them basically founding 99, they had to basically start from scratch, which says a lot for this game and how it feels and plays, because they had no code base from original games, because that belonged to what was Single Track, and now they're with GT Interactive. So this was a fresh start, and it was a pretty fresh miss in my eyes in a lot of respects. So this game, one of the big notable things, which I thought was a fun note, is that it runs at 30 frames per second, stable, apparently, because all the other games ran at 20, which, Bob, that may not mean much to you. It just means that, like, the original games were a lot more chuggier and looked a lot more choppier, and this was a little bit smoother experience, which I couldn't tell, frankly, after playing this again.
That does not help.
It doesn't make any sense at all, yeah. And also, one cool thing this game did introduce, for all of its faults, it did introduce a 4-player deathmatch. I don't know how that plays. I can't imagine very well, because this managed just a mush of choppy gaming, and I don't know, it just feels like it'd be a bad time with 4 people.
I was going to say, is it still 30 frames at 4 players?
I doubt it. I'm sure it's like, 25 frames with a greatly decreased resolution. Yeah. So the story in this game is it's 2008, and Calypso has once again invited contestants to battle around the world and win this tournament and earn anything they wish. So there's a lot of returning drivers in here. There's Axel, Mr. Grimm, Hammerhead, Outlaw, Roadkill. A lot of the characters that you're used to in the first 2 games are in here. And there's a couple new ones. There's Augur, who's similar to Mr. Slam, except he has like this drill construction vehicle, which is even less impressive than Mr. Slam, because his special, if I recall, doesn't he drill the other car and like spins them?
That's it, and then it spits them
and it pushes them out. Yeah, it's really dumb. There's also Club Kid, who's like this kid like this. I guess he looks like he's in a bit of a Mini Cooper. He's got like a smiley face on it.
No, I think he's British too.
Is he British?
Yep.
So there you go. A little bit of a stereotype. Yeah. And there's Firestarter. I don't remember too much about Firestarter. And there's Flower Power, who's like this girl in this VW Bug that's very Flower Power-ish.
I'm gonna bring controversy today, but I'm most familiar with 3. Firestarter was a pyromaniac.
Oh, okay, there you go.
That was just riding around his car, and I think his special, I think it was just this giant flame that shot out
like
the
a
front.
flamethrower thing? Yep. That would make perfect sense, yeah. Some levels here are more related to World Tour, I guess. There's Hollywood, Washington, D.C. There's Hangar 18, which I have to imagine is a Megadeth reference. I don't know. Mm-hmm. North Pole, I remember playing that level quite a bit. London, Tokyo, Egypt, and a blimp. And reviews here. So this game did not review well. It got kind of mixed reviews, but it didn't matter because it still sold over 1 million copies in the U.S. It didn't really matter. So that tells you a lot when the game may not be the best, but if you have a fun enough game, I guess people will not care and they'll buy it regardless. So EGM reviewed this in issue 114. They gave it a 6, 5, 5, 5.5. They said the best feature, smooth visuals. Worst feature, lame arenas. They said it's another cookie cutter combat game and level design was disappointing. One reviewer pointed out how Twisted Metal 2 allowed you to experiment and discover areas by blowing structures up, and Twisted Metal 3 relies more on switches and gimmicks. Another hated the floaty physics that caused the cars to flip so much and lose its arcade feel. And the visuals were a step up, but the rest of the game was slow and tedious, which I think they're right on the mark as far as the physics and how the game looks. Because I played this again, and holy crap, it's like, if you guys thought like Twisted Metal 1 and 2 was like ice skating, this is like, I don't know what the next level of ice skating would be, but it's like you cannot keep the car on the road at all. It's really nuts.
I was surprised. I never played this back then, and I still haven't now. But I was surprised when I watched that little documentary on it, and they were saying that none of the arenas have like elevation changes.
Yeah, they're really flat for the most part. You might have like one of the first levels is like you might have like a freeway thing where you can go up like this really small ramp, but they feel kind of confined and just bland. Like they don't feel like Twisted Metal at all.
Well, fellas. 3 is probably behind Black. 3 is probably my favorite.
I knew it was because I would play this and I'm like, I don't like this, and you're like, what are you talking about? It's great. And also for Bob, I should mention this too, but this has Rob Zombie on the soundtrack.
Oh yeah,
and he's a big piece of it, and that's also a big reason why Bob also loves it because he was a big Rob Zombie fan at the time.
Oh yeah, it's and I put that on my notes that I didn't bring with me. But no, I found it just fun. I found it easier to control than 2. I didn't feel like I was. When you mentioned that you just had trouble just keeping the car on the road, I didn't feel that at all. I was like, this is the first game.
Did you play it recently?
Yeah. The funny thing is, I actually played it with my youngest daughter on the
really
original.
funny.
Yeah, on the original PlayStation.
Yeah.
And yeah, just to me, it played smooth. Maybe that's just my weird perception of things. But I enjoyed it because it was really fun for me, at least. Back in, what was this? Came out in 98, right?
Yeah.
90. This was, let's see, it was November 98.
Yeah. So 98, around that time, the first CD I ever bought was Rob Zombie CD. Mm-hmm. So I was like an 8 or 9 year old, and this this game comes out, and it's like, okay, it's Twisted Metal. Holy crap, it's got Rob Zombie, and like that first level that you play, it's Rob Zombie. So it had all these different components that I think that's probably why I enjoyed it. It started going a bit off the rails, like narratively, with each
It got
character.
Really nuts. Yeah,
they were starting to get pretty decently goofy with some of them. Mm-hmm. And they started kind of not retconning some of the existing characters, but they were getting a little sillier. Like Mr. Grimm was just when you go to the character select screen, they have like the whatever button you pressed, and they actually have the characters reading off their backstory and why they're there and what they're competing for. I remember Mr. Grimm's voice. It sounded like a little kid that was just doing their best high-pitched, like, ghostly voice.
Yeah. I think that's what really felt the drop-off for me, too, is like all the characters started to feel really whimsical and not as... Like the other games were more tongue-in-cheek and kind of cynical and dark. Mm-hmm. And this felt like it was more whimsical dark and kind of just like funny horror,
Didn't 3 and 4 start incorporating sort of like comic style cutscenes?
Yeah, which were kind of cool. Twisted Metal 2 also had comic endings too. Yeah, like graphic art panels. Almost.
Yeah, but 2 looked narratively. 2 was really good. And that's when they started doing the whole: is it in his mind, or are these characters real, or whatever? And the art style was great, and they balanced the violence with the funny aspects. 3, it was much more lighthearted, and most of the endings are pretty ridiculous. Like, why would they ask for this? This is the dumbest thing ever.
They were really dumb because even like Twisted Metal 2 has some pretty dark endings. Like Grasshopper's ending, if I recall, you find out she's Calypso's daughter, and they've long lost her, I should say. Calypso embraces her, and then she explodes and kills him because it turns out that someone had built sort of an android that's a facsimile of his daughter, and that's how they got to him to kill her. So it's like a pretty dark and twisted ending.
Yeah.
And I can't really pinpoint Twisted Metal 3 endings, but I just remember them playing through them. I was like, this kind of sucks. Like, these aren't very good.
Yeah, to give context, Sweet Tooth's, granted, you could argue in the first game, he was just mentally ill. So you could argue, okay, that's why he asked for like the paper bag and a package of hot dogs or whatever it was. 2, narratively, it started to reflect more with Black, where they had kind of more the deeper, heavier themes. With Twisted Metal 3, Sweet Tooth's wish was he wanted to eat all the candy in the world.
I remember something dumb like that.
And then the monkey's paw, Tales from the Crypt twist was, oh geez, he got cavities, so now he has to go to the dentist.
Now it's a lesson for kids.
Yeah, so it was pretty ridiculous. The game was silly as shit, but I think those are all the reasons why I thought I just had a lot of fun with it. It's definitely not a great game technically by any means, but it's just one of those things where it was just fun. That's
the thing is, as we've gotten older, we obviously grew to understand more that just because it may not be well reviewed in general doesn't mean someone can enjoy it. Because the flip side here, GamePro actually enjoyed this more than EGM and more than most. Yeah. So GamePro, they gave graphics a 4, sound 4.5, control 4.5. Fun factor 4.5.
Wow.
Yeah, which is to me is very high. It's a little too high.
Yeah.
And Dan Electro thought it made some worthwhile improvements from 2. He actually liked the new driving physics and destructible environments, which is a total opposite of what most people would say. And he also noted that the high-res textures had to be compromised to meet 30 frame per second requirement. But he thought the level design was excellent. So he says the polar opposite. He's basically saying what Bob says.
Oh my god! How much
Bob may as well viewed this.
How much were they paid off?
Let's not forget too. This game made an appearance in Big Daddy as well.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that sold a lot too. I'm sure. Yeah.
This was another bold choice too. I'm sure it got more sales because just the box art is only Sweet Tooth's face.
Yeah.
And on the back, it shows him prominently. And then you get in there, and he's a boss that you have to unlock later.
Yeah, he's unlockable. Darkseid is also a boss, and he's unlockable with Game Shark. Minion is a boss, once again, unlockable.
I feel like it's a bait and switch at this point.
It kind of is. But also, it's I think for us, we kind of expected that point.
Yeah.
But I never really understood why they made Sweet Tooth a locked character when, again, he was on the art of the first game. He was a big part of part 2. And it's really weird that they would just lock him. You have to kind of put effort to unlock him for whatever reason. It's really weird. It's like if someone locked Ryu or something.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. All right, so we'll go on to Twisted Metal 4 here. So this was, again, continuing with the annual schedule. This was released November 16th, 1999.
Damn, I can't believe they were all just back-to-back.
I know, it feels like it was a lot longer back then. Yeah.
I didn't know any of these came out around my birthday either.
I know, I thought that was pretty funny. As I was taking these notes, I was like, no, I'm sure Bob probably asked for these for his birthday or Christmas or something like that.
Yeah,
I'm sure this was probably
it was an annual given.
Yeah. So this was once again developed by 99 Studios, and 99 tried to rework a lot of this game to meet the criticisms that people had about Twisted Metal 3, particularly on the physics, and they also expanded levels and weapons. And I think they did a great job of this one, frankly, because this was a lot different that felt different, and also I guess we get to it now, but you could play as Rob Zombie in this game.
Oh yeah,
and his car is the Dragula.
What a selling point!
Yeah.
Hopefully that makes an appearance in the show at some point.
Yes, I would hope so, yeah. So this is a weird one because this is the first game in the series where Sweet Tooth is running the Twisted Metal tournament. This, I thought was really weird back then as well. But the idea is that in the 1900s, there was a caravan that was going around destroying the country with its tournaments. So it's basically sort of like a primitive Twisted Metal. And a young Sweet Tooth is enamored and he enters this competition and wins. His wish is to become the true star Twisted Metal, and Calypso grants him the wish. Chaos erupts, but Sweet Tooth recruits I can't even say this because it sounds so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Recruits a group of midget clowns to stage a coup against Calypso and take over Twisted Metal.
It doesn't age particularly well.
It doesn't. And Calypso's youth and power, it comes from a ring, apparently. It's like a soul ring he's got, because the idea is basically anyone who dies in Twisted Metal tournament, their soul gets absorbed in this ring. So Sweet Tooth now has taken that ring and runs this Twisted Metal tournament. So this is just over-explained for why this tournament exists. They go I don't know what else they could have done, but it's just really funny to think. And there's even a cutscene where it shows his little people clowns overtaking Calypso. It's just so ridiculous looking.
Yeah. God, this is the narrative for this game, and just the style and the characters, everything from top to bottom. It just reminds me of I'm not sure how aware of you are, but it reminds me of just no guardrails, WCW Vince Russo.
Yeah, just throw it at the wall and let it stick.
Late WCW.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Oh yeah, there was no check and balance.
Yeah.
It was just do everything and then see what
happens. If it sounds
happens.
good, run with it, and we'll kind of work on it later and figure it out. So it's a pretty wild story. It really doesn't change much because the idea is still the same. You're still playing as a racer trying to get through the tournaments and get your final wish or your one wish that usually ends in some sort of twist, right? But now they've twisted because The only impetus for this is that Calypso's playable. So that's whole of his story is I believe he's trying to regain control back of Twisted Metal. So there's a little bit of a war between him and Sweet Tooth. And Calypso has like this crazy nuke truck that, if I recall correctly, launches a nuke for his special.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
And like it obliterates most enemies in an area of effect. It's really nuts.
Yeah, which it makes sense too. It's like if he's fighting so hard to get back in that position,
He needs the ultimate weapon.
Yeah, but it's just so funny. You play it and it's a nuke.
Yeah.
You launch it, and I think like you can determine when it explodes, and it's a massive blast. I remember experiencing a ton of slowdown on the PlayStation with it because it was such a ridiculously big weapon.
It was really cool looking though. And also one thing I noted, I think I sent this to Ducey when I played this again, but this might be one of the earliest instances of a game having a graphics toggle where you could toggle between like a performance boost or higher fidelity so you can make it look a little bit better.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I mean it doesn't make a big difference. It still runs like crap and looks like crap, right?
Okay.
But it's like the idea is there. Like the idea is like, do you want to prioritize game graphics so it looks a little bit higher res, or do you want to deal with like a smoother frame rate, which you won't really get either in either respect, but it's there.
Yeah. Do you want an in-depth mushroom cloud? Or do you want to still be able to drive?
Yeah. Would you like that nuke to go off and run at 20 frames or 15? It's really your choice.
It reminds me of Battle Tanks had a nuke.
That's right.
And that would cause massive slowdown on the N64 and make my TV crackle insanely.
that signature Daewoo sound.
I'm sure. I don't think we ever played Twisted Metal 4 at my house, but if we had, I'm sure that would have been
hilarious.
Crackling.
You might need a new TV after that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
blow out the speakers.
So the contestants in here, I won't go through all of them, but I feel like this is one of the ones that were mostly uninspired because they have a lot more characters. Like there's one who's named Orbital. There's Pizza Boy, which is kind of fun. Mr. Grimm is now Captain Grimm. He's got like this.
Oh, he got a promotion, huh?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, but he's got like this goofy pirate car thing that looks really silly. This was my least favorite iteration of Mr. Grimm.
And his parrot talks for him.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, that's really silly. And then of course Calypso. There's a character named Quattro who's like this. He looks like a cybernetic being. I don't know what he really was. I don't remember. There's Meter Maid, who's a woman in in like a meter maid. What do you call it?
The little 3-wheel vehicle thing?
Yeah, the 3-wheeler thing. That's a car in here. There's a lot. There's Drag Queen, who's exactly not the most what's politically correct.
It doesn't. Yeah, you're not going to find that in 2025.
You will
anymore.
not. No.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is some of the weaker roster, but then they also have like a bunch of secret characters. Like there's Minion you can unlock. There's Super Thumper, Super Slam, which are just sort of enhanced versions of their Twisted Metal 2 or 3 counterparts. And the reviews here were more middle of the road, which is fine. I mean, I think these are mostly on the mark. So EGM reviewed it, EGM 126. They gave it a 7, 6.5, a 5, and a 5. Best feature, better than Twisted Metal 3.
Yeah.
Worst feature, concept is getting really old, which I understand. This is the 4th game in as many years. I think that's a fair thing to have, especially when it's still largely the same game for the most part.
Not just old, but silly.
Sillier, yeah. Sillier, yeah. The reviewer with a 7 said that 99 did a good job of making it a much better game than the 3, from the level design to the improved physics. One reviewer said, it's not Rogue Trip, and another said, I don't know why this game is updated and rehashed every year like a sports game.
Yeah.
They said it was much better than 3, and they really wanted something fresher and new. And just to note, because I think Rogue Trip was reviewed an issue or two earlier, the same reviewer who pointed out Rogue Trip gave that an 8 in November 1998.
Wow. All those scores are crazy. 9, 8.5, 9, and 8.
Yeah, so I really got to check that out because I totally dismissed it because, again, like I just thought it was another Twisted Metal clone, and it literally is because it was made by the Twisted Metal people, you know?
Made better.
It made better, yeah. So I know this game's only like $20. I'm probably going to have to pick it up somewhere, but I almost never see it. But I definitely want to give it a shot because that demo obviously was not enough for me, apparently. GamePro issue 136, they reviewed it. They gave it graphics 4.5, sound 3.5, control 3.5, fun factor 4. Dan Electra reviewed this one again. He said that he liked that there were a lot more weapons around the levels. He praised the card creator, which I guess we could talk about real quick soon too, because I forgot that was in there. And he praised the card creator because of its options and the ability to save up to 30. And he actually said the game is too fast and can be hard to control because of sensitivity. And he says it's improvement, but it's tough competition with games like Vigilante 8s, which also had been out at this time. It wasn't out before Twisted Metal 3 with those games I mentioned.
Oh, That makes
I
sense.
think it was around the same time, but that was a different developer as well.
I remember liking Vigilante 8 when it came out. And
We loved it.
yeah, we really didn't play Twisted Metal 3 or 4 all that much because we were like, well, Vigilante 8 seems a little better.
Yeah, we also played that multiplayer on N64, which I thought was a lot of fun. So yeah, I really love Vigilante 8. I played it recently, like within the last year recently on my 360. I was like, wow, this game is Twisted Metal 3 floaty. I forgot how crazy this is. It's pretty nuts. But yeah, the car carrier, I guess I'll briefly touch on that. So I went through it when I played through this again, and it is not nearly as robust as it would sound in 2000, which is, it makes sense, like it's 25 years ago. But there's really like, I think there's like 3 or 4 different tiers. It's like size of vehicle, small, medium, large. Special weapon, it's like there's 3 or 4 different options. So you could technically, there's a bunch of permutations in that. It doesn't really do much because there's no personality to it. I don't even know what the ending would be like either, actually. I didn't even think about that.
I don't remember.
Or if there even was an ending.
Yeah, because I forgot there was even a car creator option. I remember back then I think I played around with it for a little bit. But, there's no personality to the cars. There's no point for me to actually make them. So I just stuck with the characters. But yeah, I'm curious if there were anything by the time you finished it. I don't think there was, though.
I can't imagine there was, yeah. Did you play this one at all, Ducey, back then, at all?
Nope.
You have no familiar with it?
No.
Bob, where would you place this with Twisted Metal 3? Because I think this one, I think of the earlier games, I think this one is unfairly crapped on because it's not great. I don't think it's better than 1 or 2 necessarily, but it's still really good. It's way better than a 3 in my eyes.
Well, I'm gonna give you the Bob counterpoint here.
I know you will. I was ready for it. That's why
Yeah,
I was teeing you up.
Yeah, 3 and 4 are actually my preferred games out of that first.
Wow.
The originals.
Yeah, I'm not surprised though because I know how much you played those.
Yeah, so 3 and 4 for me. Everyone kind of moved on from Twisted Metal at that point. Because you guys mentioned like Vigilante 8. I'm just like, I don't think I played that one.
I bet you didn't even bother with that one at
No,
all.
I
You
didn't.
probably watched me and Ducey play and like, yeah, I don't need it.
Yeah, I'm like, that's not Twisted Metal 4. I'm going to play the
Yeah.
better game. But I enjoyed 4 a lot, and enjoyed 3. So I preferred both of those over the first 2. But yeah, 4 was just bonkers, ridiculous. With the characters were fun, and some of them had some like really cool specials too. Like the pizza boy, he had like these pizza cutters. Like,
Yeah, I do
blades.
remember that.
Yeah, it made a cool noise, and like they would shoot out and they would home in on the enemies. The game to me seemed more out of control than 3. Narratively and just how it played.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
there being a ton of slowdown with some of the bigger cars like Calypso and with the nuke and all that, which kind of took me out a little bit.
Well, and also the levels were bigger, which I think didn't help it. Like, it's nice to have big levels, but I think that also didn't help the performance either because you have all that crap going on.
Yeah, in particular, the levels were more creative because there's one level where it's like Sweet Tooth's bedroom, but it's like a kid's bedroom for some reason.
I remember that. I remember there was a carnival one too, right? I think
The carnival was
that
the
was,
last
that was,
level.
That was
and
one of the best ones.
Yeah, and it was big, but all the levels were really fun. I had fun really throughout the entire game. The endings were silly and ridiculous. Some of them were kind of funny and humorous. Story was stupid as hell.
Yeah. At this point, I was just like playing through to get the endings. And I was like, these are not impactful at all. They're not fun or interesting.
Yeah, it didn't fully feel like a Twisted Metal knockoff, but it was pretty damn close to it. The one aspect that was really, really fun was that if you had a Game Shark, some of the codes you could activate made the game just infinitely more fun. So there's one in particular where you could do rapid fire and infinite ammo.
Yes.
And there was something, and it wouldn't break the game, but it would make the game play completely different with those two things activated. So do you guys remember the ricochet weapon?
Yeah.
Where it was just
it would build up momentum and do more damage
Yep.
once it bounced off of at least one surface.
Yeah, it was just like that, perfectly round, goofy cartoon bomb. But you could shoot hundreds of them, and they would just bounce around the entire level. And if it was like a big one, like the carnival at the end, you would just and they would build up momentum. So what would happen is you would just fire off like 100 nonstop in a few seconds, and you would just have these things bouncing across the entire level. And then when it would hit somebody, they wouldn't just explode. It would throw the car and everything completely off the map into just the abyss of nothing.
The
and
floor
destroy
is
them.
lava bombs is what it is.
Yeah, and then the meter maid was like a cheap, great value outlaw. So they still had the
taser,
that
The
taser.
siren.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
yeah, it was like the taser that spun around. So if you did the rapid fire on that one, you would just have this giant spider web of electricity, and as soon as it would touch. any car it would touch, it would send them like out of bounds for the game into space, and give it like 10 seconds, you would hear them explode off in the distance. And it made it to where you would just plow through the levels no problem.
I'm
but
sure,
oh
because
my
you
God.
have infinite arsenal, which the AI enemies do not.
It was so fun. And then the proximity mines too, because you could do rapid fire, so you can make this giant trail of bombs.
Like dominoes.
Yep, like dominoes. And then the cool thing was, like, at the end with the carnival, you can go on the highest level on the roller coaster, and you just wait for someone to go and run over them. And if you did, the game would slow down like crazy, but you would see this chain reaction of just explosions across the entire level.
No, I do remember that, because it almost looked like when you're watching like a WWE event and they do the border fireworks going off the edge of the arena or something like that, right?
Yep.
Except it's just, proximity bonds. And I also remember, I think you get hit by the roller coaster that would sometimes send you flying too.
Oh,
right?
you could, yeah.
Because on the edge of on the edge of the map, yeah.
I vaguely remember it, but yeah, playing it with Game Shark, oh my God, it was so fun.
Yeah. So this game, like I said, I think it's unfairly hated on. I think it's not gonna blow you away or anything. But I think outside of the awful story and the awful kind of, I'd say, uninspired characters, it's a pretty damn fun car combat game. But I think you also nailed it, Bob, where it feels like a Twisted Metal knockoff that's trying to be Twisted Metal. Like it's Twisted Metal, but it's not.
That's so weird to think.
Yeah.
I think something more apropos for this would be, it's the Batman and Robin of Twisted Metal.
The Joel Schumacher Twisted Metal.
Well, that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because without that, there was no Batman Begins. So without 4, we wouldn't have what came later.
I guess that's true. That's actually a perfect segue for this, because this, I will just spoil it all for you because it's obvious. This is my favorite Twisted Metal game ever. I cannot overstate how much I love this game, how much I was waiting for it. But after Twisted Metal 4, which, again, we went through the reviews, like a lot of people were tired of it, and I say that in a general sense because I think that's also what was the case for gaming in general. Like, there have been so many Twisted Metal games, there have been so many clones that people were just waiting for something new. And, at this point, the PS2 had come out, because by the time, let's see, November 1999, it was about a year out from the PS2. The PS2 came out in October 2000. So once the PS2 came out, that was a lot of that was probably the one instance where a lot of developers were like, okay, now we can afford to like reboot a series or do a new take on it, right? Because we have this brand new hardware that is, to my eyes, still today probably the biggest generational leap from one to the other. Because now you have like PS4 to PS5, PS3 to PS5, whatever. But I feel like the leap I saw from PS1 to PS2 was truly just mind-blowing at the time. So it made perfect sense that Twisted Metal Black would come out, and that this was going to be the reboot that everyone was hoping for, and the one that we hoped for. This came out June 19th, 2001. So as of this recording, it just celebrated its 24th anniversary, which is pretty wild. This was published by Sony Computer Entertainment, developed by Incognito Entertainment. Incognito was founded by someone named Scott Campbell in 1999. And he led the development of Rogue Trip for single track back then. So again, he had experience with Twisted Metal and car combat, and it made sense that he was going to head this new studio to head this development of this game. David Jaffe will return for this, which was, I think, a big change for this, and you could tell significant because he was not involved in Twisted Metal 3 and 4. He was with, I think, single track still with GT Interactive, so he was doing stuff with Rogue Trip and whatever else. So he came back, and also he worked there. He worked there and left with most of the staff, and then later on he created Eat, Sleep, Play, which is the development company I was telling you about, where he made like Calling All Cars and Drawn to Life, these other games. Not Drawn to Life. I forgot what it's called. I mean, it was Drawn to Life. I don't know what the hell it's called. So this was well before that, but with this same development studio, they also developed a few other PS2 games after this. There was War of the Monsters, which I really liked, Downhill Domination, which was like this, I guess we'll call it extreme downhill mountain biking game. That was actually pretty cool. I don't know if you guys ever played that one. And I mentioned Calling All Cars, and of course there's the sort of reboot of Warhawk that came out on PS3. So this game is also notable because it runs at a very crispy 60 frames per second. I remember when they showed this trailer, I think it was like the late 2000 or late 99 or something like that, or late 2000, excuse me. Bob and I were just like chomping at the bit for this thing. Like we could not stop rewatching that trailer over and over and over. I don't know if you remember that, Bob. I'm sure you probably do.
Absolutely. I don't remember where we find that trailer back then.
It was probably GameSpot.com. Like we had the internet then, so it was just where it's not like now you go on YouTube and pull up anything you want. Back then, it's like you really had to source your news and see what's posting up, whatever.
And it was pretty significant finding it. Like, holy crap! And then it was, not to get too deep into it too early, but like, there's so many aspects of this game that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't recall any game around that time being anything like it at all.
No, this tone was really, really dark. I mean, they even said that it was inspired by Silence of the Lambs and Seven, which, I mean, you played through a couple of characters in this game, you could see 100% that's what's influenced by.
Yeah, and like thematically and just from a storytelling perspective, I don't recall any game similar to this at all around that time, and I felt that it went to places narratively that that a lot of games didn't, and it started it opened like a door to where other games kind of followed that same, not same style, but they kind of took the restraints off a little bit, because
they realized they could get darker without getting as much trouble as they would have in the 90s.
Yeah, and I remember I think we saw one of Sweet Tooth's cutscenes online early, and I remember, I don't think they bleeped out him saying, I don't know if I can say the F word, but like we heard him say the F word, and we were like, "What? We've never heard that before." And like, I don't.
I was like 15 at the time. I was like, "What?"
Well, you're not expecting that coming off of 3 and 4.
That's also true. Like we had pretty recent history with 4 still, because we were probably playing it a little bit back then.
Yeah, but I don't recall any video games back in 2000, 2001 where a character was cursing like that at all.
I feel like this was a reboot for the entire genre, because the market probably got flooded with all those copycats. Vigilante 8, even weird ones, like there was that Star Wars car.
Oh, Star Wars Demolition. That's right. Yeah,
car combat game, but that was on PS1 also. Like
PS1 and Dreamcast.
Yeah, and so I feel like the previous generation was getting too many of these, and everybody was getting tired of them. Not just Twisted Metal, but all of them. And so it kind of went to bed for a while. And then when Black came back, it was like holding the flag for a new generation of them. But I don't know. This was mid 2001. So after September 11th, I wonder how much was still wanted to be this edgy.
Oh, I don't know. I'd imagine, they probably been a little bit more reserved, because I think everyone was sensitive after 9/11.
Because I think in Black, isn't there a spot on one of the levels where you can bring down a jet?
Yep.
A jumbo jet?
Yeah. Well, that's how you unlock Yellow Jacket, actually.
Yep. Yeah, you have to. I think it's
use the
first
gas
level.
can.
Yep, gas can, and you have to lob it at the plane, and you gotta shoot the plane down.
Yeah, and it crashes into this warehouse building, and then I don't know. I think you go in there and you collect something. It says Yellow Jacket's been found or something like that. Yeah. So the theme of this game, if we haven't hammered it before, is just immensely dark, and I love it. Like, I mean, people now might say it's really edgy, cringy, whatever. I don't care at all. I don't give a shit what you say. To me, this was a different Twisted Metal. It's just, I mean, even Jaffe said it himself. He says that the PS2 had allowed them to make the game that they actually wanted to in 1993. Like, this is what they ultimately had the vision for, and now they're finally able to do it. And Calypso in this instance was inspired by Hannibal Lecter, which, again, if you played the game, you could easily see the similarities between the two. And while the premise is the same, where he invites contestants to play in a tournament, this is a lot more darker, because now he visits a mental hospital called Blackfield, and he offers basically all these mental patients a chance at freedom and to gain whatever they wish. And
they still get one wish, don't they? But
they get one wish, yeah.
But the difference is they're all from the asylum.
They're all from the asylum, and all these characters are very dark. There's not really any redeeming qualities about any of them. And there's some really wild, insane stories in this game. Like the preacher, for instance, you find out, like, I forgot what his wish is, but it ends up coming out that, like, he's, I think he's trying to say, like, there's demonic forces in the world or something like that, right?
He's under the impression that he was possessed by a demon
That's
at one
right.
point, and he wants Calypso to, like, excise it or something.
And you find out that he's like, he's a priest, so he's like, I guess he like drowned the baby in like holy water or something crazy like that. And there's some other.
Because he thought the baby was a demon. Right?
Yeah, right. And so it's like there's some really, you could say it's edgy, but there's some really dark stuff in here. Like Mr. Grimm's in here, and he was like a Vietnam War vet who was a cannibal to survive. And I forgot what do you remember what his twist was too? I don't remember what that was.
He got him and his friend were drafted into the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
They shot his friend. They captured him, threw him in a hole. And then I guess the advisor, to the army in Vietnam, he was pretty privy to torture. So what he did was he pretty much forced him. He wasn't feeding him, so he pretty much forced him to eat his friend in order to survive.
Yeah, yeah, and that's also crazy too because the character designs are all, again, really. I hate to use dark over and over, but they're really just torturous in some instances. Like. Mr. Grimm is actually wearing a skull helmet, like he's wearing someone's skull over his face.
And probably his friend.
The skull of
his friend.
Probably his friend,
right? Yeah. So this game is totally different than any of the previous Twisted Metal games, and it really shines with it. There's a different format with the, I guess we'll call it story arcade mode. There's like an opening cutscene, which takes place in the asylum, and it's really just the backstory of the character. There's a mid cutscene where I think you fight Minion, the mid boss in here, right?
Yep.
And then you get sort of a midpoint scene where it's usually might give more background to the character themselves, like kind of their inspirations or how they got to where they are. And then, of course, there's the ending, which is the great sort of Tales from the Crypt, Twilight Zone twist on these things. And each character, I mean, you just want to know what happens to them. So I think that's one thing is like Bob and I played through this game like dozens of times because there's also unlockable cubes. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can find, just about the levels. Everything about this game is just bigger and more intense and more crazy. And it's just, it's honestly like one of my favorite PS2 games ever.
I would say the same for me. Like, I would rank it pretty high. I only just got a copy recently. I never owned it back then, but I know I borrowed it from you a ton. Mm-hmm. And I actually played it a lot. I feel like this was the one I spent the most time on, and this was the one I got the most endings out of.
Yeah.
I really wanted to see what everybody's deal was. Mm-hmm. But I'm also thinking I probably used some sort of cheat codes.
I think we did at some point, especially to find collectibles, because this game, we'll get to it after we get the reviews here, but it is really freaking hard. It's a lot harder than I recall.
Yeah, it was, and I think I managed to somehow get through it without codes the first time, but to get everything unlocked, I had to use codes.
Yeah, well, because again, like, to find these black cubes, and they're hidden throughout each level, and each of these levels are pretty sizable, especially. I mean, maybe now they're not as huge, but they're still pretty big. So you had to, have the least amount of distractions and people shooting at you could, the better it was. But sometimes you need to use cheats so you could roam around and find these damn things.
Yeah.
It wasn't so easy. So for reviews, I got from IGN and GameSpot as well as a couple magazines here. So I'll start with EGM, issue 145. They gave this an 8, a 9, and 8.5, which is EGM Silver. The best feature is solid game engine and nice graphics. Worst feature, lack of variety, which I find kind of dumb.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit of variety in this game.
Interesting point, because there's quite a bit to explore and unlock, and
not just with characters, but also levels.
Yeah. It's really weird that that's their one pain point in this game.
Yeah, and the weapons were pretty damn unique too.
They were. Well, we can get into those too. Yeah. EGM did say screenshots don't do the game justice, and they said it's finally the Twisted Metal sequel that everyone wanted. The physics and controls were perfect. One reviewer said that he wished there was more variety because each story mode level is the same for everyone and light on multiplayer options. And one reviewer said the dark humor knows when to kick you in the balls, which I think is a perfect way to put what the story can do to you. GamePro reviewed this in August 2001, issue 155. They give the graphics a 5, sound a 5, control 4.5, fun factor 4.5. Dan Lecter reviewed this one again. He said graphically, Twisted Metal Black simply looks bitchin'. Those are his words. He noted that all the particle effects and despite all the particle effects, there wasn't any slowdown. And he said that the sense of speed isn't as good in 4-player, which I don't recall ever playing 4-player here. Maybe 2. I don't know if we ever used the multi-tap on this thing.
No, we had one, but I don't think we used it for
I don't think so either. Yeah. I kind of forgot it had a 4-player mode. And he said that he did not like the difficult AI and said it was too smart, often only hurting you, but it's car combat at its best, which I think is also perfectly appropriate for this game. IGN gave it a 9.6 out of 10. The reviewer had some small nitpicks. They weren't a fan of some of the slower cars, which I think is fair, like Warthog and some of the others, but it's not that big a deal. He said it was the ultimate car combat experience with lots of secrets and unlockables, which again kind of goes against what EGM is saying with lack of variety.
Yeah.
GameSpot gave it a 9.5 out of 10. They said it's a terrific game in every aspect, and it plays better than any other car combat game. And overall, they love the character stories and cutscenes and multiplayer. So, yeah, this game it got high marks everywhere. They eventually released at Greatest Hits because it sold so well. And also, there was it's one of the earliest online games on the PS2, which is kind of wild. You could actually mail in a little mailer postcard to get a free copy of Twisted Metal Black Online, which you could play online with the broadband adapter, because when you brought the broadband adapter, it had a little placard you could send out. And then later Greatest Hits versions, I believe, also include Twisted Metal Black Online. I wish I'd gotten to play it, because I never got the broadband adapter for PS2 until like way later when everything was dead and gone. And I think I played like Metal Gear 3 or Metal Gear Solid 3 online. But I would have liked to have played Twisted Metal Online. But this game, fellas, like, what else do you want to say about this? Because I feel like this, to me, is like one of the best PS2 games. I think it's one of the best instances of showcasing what the PS2 can do. And again, it's like the ultimate reboot for me, at least, for one of my favorite series.
Yeah, I can't say much more. Like, it was just, I think this got me more into Twisted Metal than the original game, even though I said what I did about the original game being like a mascot for it. But if I didn't have such fond memories for Twisted Metal Black, I might not have even tried the series, like watching the show or anything.
Yeah, I could talk about this game all day. It's,
I know we could have done a whole episode, whole hour and a half about Twisted Metal Black.
Yeah.
yeah, because not only is it my favorite Twisted Metal, it's just one of my favorite games, period. And besides the fact that it's ridiculously fun and just the smoothest possible way to play Twisted Metal, the stories and the cutscenes and just the overarching theme of everything is so good.
Well, also we should point out too, the theme of the game literally is Painted Black by Rolling Stones.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
And there's nothing more appropriate for how dark and just macabre this game is. It's freaking wild.
Yeah, and it's not like they're just purposely pushing boundaries just to be edgy for the sake of being edgy. The characters are well thought out with fleshed out intentions and motivations and everything. And then ironically for this particular one, the characters that ask for violent wishes or to harm someone else or that involve killing, they all get what they want, no strings attached, like some of the other games. Most of the characters, if not all of them, that ask for something noble, like maybe to right a wrong, they're the ones that get screwed in the end. So like, remember, like Outlaws, he was like, oh, I want to do this so I don't harm those innocent people. Oh, well, you get killed at the end of your ending. So I just thought it turned everything on its head. Everything was just so much more grim, which was so good. I really wish that they would make a follow-up to this and keep that style, not the mash of, oh, you kind of got like the silly stuff with the dark stuff. I wish they would just make a follow-up to Black in some manner, which I doubt that's going to happen. But yeah, incredible now, and playing it back then for the first time, especially incredible. Just seeing where they went, how hard they took it, and they took it even further than what came out, but they had to take out a lot of footage and a lot of story points. Mm-hmm. But my God, what a fantastic game! Yeah,
this I really can't praise this game enough. Like even, I'd say the biggest fault of this game is that it is really, really, really difficult. But even then, it's like a small blemish because there's cheats if you want to. And there's, again, like the biggest thing is it's the secret to discover. And like we mentioned, shooting down that plane with the gas can to unlock a character. I remember there's also an instance where you could shoot the cartwheel off its base and it starts rolling through the suburbs.
Oh, yeah.
And there's also like a hidden cube there. It's just, this game just really does its best to give you a bunch of surprises and secrets to find. And on top of it, it's all wrapped under this really like unsettling 7 Silence of the Lambs theme that I think works really, really well. And maybe it's cheesy these days. I don't really care because I think it's still, there's so much fondness for it. And the stories, they're pretty wild and out there, but they're really interesting to listen to. And everyone has a pretty interesting story, I would say.
Yeah, and again, I do feel that just the mature subject matter of this game opened the doors to what games could be thematically.
Yeah.
It wasn't just, oh, they're silly or they're this or that. This had a pretty well thought out, fleshed out, detailed story and narrative. Again, I talk about it all day, but it is good. My favorite Twisted Metal game, probably one of my favorite games ever.
For me, easy as well. All the same points and I would say this one's also inexpensive to find, and more importantly, you could find it on PS Plus because it is a PS Plus game. It's worth trying, even if you can't get past the first couple levels.
Yeah.
Once you kind of get your your bearings in it, it's not as bad. But you just have to be constantly on the move and realize everyone's out to get you no matter what.
Yep.
Yeah. So the next game, this one's a little bit more divisive. Bob, I know you're a fan of this one.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, so this one, it's a little bit different. So we have the most mature adult Twisted Metal you can imagine, and now we have the kiddiest Twisted Metal you can imagine. And this is Twisted Metal Small Brawl. This came out November 27, 2001. It was published by Sony Computer Entertainment and developed by Incognito Entertainments. This was also a project that they were doing sort of concurrently with Twisted Metal Black. And it's interesting because I was looking up videos for this, and I saw that one of the developers, David Goodrich, he was a designer and artist. He was just randomly commenting on the videos, like about little developer tidbits and giving info about stuff. He basically said that this game was originally going to release on PS2, but they didn't want to cannibalize sales from Twisted Metal Black or online, because his team was also working on Twisted Metal Black Online, which again, it's Twisted Metal Black, but they had online enhancements.
Imagine the confusion.
It would have been so weird. It would have been so weird. Like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, parents going to Kmart be like, I think this is the Twisted Metal they want.
Yeah. But what happened with that is because they started development on PS2, and I guess they made a decision at some points early on they say we have to put this on PS1, and that required them to rewrite the entire game engine. So he said overall, we probably had a solid 7 months to actually develop this game, which I think will explain a lot for what this game did and what it was, because it's not a very good Twisted Metal game at all. But obviously, it's not meant for the sort of typical Twisted Metal audience. This is literally kids with RC cars and car combat, which I think is a really cool idea, because you have all these different levels that revolve around like playgrounds or like these, I think there's like a bedroom one in here or something like that. But overall, it's just like the story. If you thought the stories in 3 and 4 were really, kind of childlike and whimsical, these are all childlike and whimsical, like down to the roots.
These are the sequels to those.
Yeah. So the neighborhood bully in this one is Billy Calypso, which I think is a funny name. Just Billy Calypso has a funny rhythm to it. He invites the local kids to join his tournament, and same gimmick. He grants them one wish for whatever it could be. And in here, they have a lot of the mainstays of Twisted Metal. There's Crimson Fury, who was in the original game, maybe the original 2. He hasn't been in too many of the games, but he returns.
He was in the first one.
In the first one.
Ferrari.
Yeah. Darkseid's in here, Hammerhead, Mr. Grimm. There's a new character called Mime, which I think I also later read that they developed him way late, which is why it's very nondescript. I don't know if he has really a story or anything like that. And there's there's Axel, there's Thumper. So they try to get like all the mainstays of Twisted Metal in this game. David Goodrich also mentioned on here, he says that there was an ending in here that was removed. It's a little bit insensitive.
Wow.
So Axel's in here, and his ending was removed because the ending here is that so in this game, Axel is a disabled kid. He's like in a wheelchair, I believe. And what he wishes that he could basically walk again. And Calypso grants him that, but he grants him these bionic legs, which allow him to walk. But the problem is that Calypso has remote control, so he's controlling Axel, which, to my interpretation, is almost like he's kind of enslaving him, because he then forces Axel to do like yard work and step on like yard rakes to his face.
Oh my god!
So they thought that late in development was like, yeah, that was a little too insensitive. We can't put that in there. You're basically enslaving a disabled person.
Calypso, what an asshole!
Yeah, it's like that's one of the darkest twists you could put in, especially with how this game's like a kid themed game. Like it's supposed to be like these, like probably 7-8-year-olds playing this thing.
The Calypso from Black is probably like, man, I wouldn't even go that far.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what's wrong with you? Yeah. So this game was not well received. It's we'll talk about why we didn't really like it so much, or I didn't like it so much. I know Bob loved it, but I'll get through a couple of reviews here first. So EGM reviewed this, issue 150, January 2002. They gave it a 2.5, 4.5, 3.5. The best feature is plumber's ass in the kitchen level is what they said. Worst feature, slow game speed. The 2.5 reviewer said, thank God for the plumber's ass crack that sticks out from underneath the sink in the kitchen level. If it weren't for that, this would be a total loss. Series veterans won't be impressed, and the other reviewer said that it was a slapdash, sloppy, and unimaginative retrofit. He liked the idea, but he said the floaty controls and graphics ruin it. GamePro in issue 161 reviewed it. These are all at 5, so these aren't too bad. They gave graphics a 3, sound a 3, control a 3, fun factor 2.5. Dan Electro, the fan of Twisted Metal, reviewed it. He said it was more disappointing than Twisted Metal 3 and 4.
Damn.
But the level designs are cleverly designed and weapon substitutions are fun. The execution is really bad with a poor sense of speed, but Brawl is for serious completionists or gamers too young to care. So I think his review is probably more spot on because it's more in the middle and fair. Like, it's not that awful of a game. It's just not very good. And also, for context, IGN reviewed this. They gave it a 4.5 out of 10. GameSpot gave it a 6.5 out of 10. So I can't say too much about this game because it's a kid's Twisted Metal, and it feels like it. The stories aren't remarkable. The characters are kind of interesting because they're basically just kid versions of the characters which, again, you put this against Twisted Metal Black, and it's just like a wild difference between the two, But Bob, go ahead and sing your praises for this game because we have some fun stories about this too, especially buying it, if I recall.
Oh, geez. Yeah. That one reviewer at the end, I think that pretty much hits it, all on the head or on the nose. Yeah, it felt sloppy. It felt like they just kind of threw it all together in a really, small or short time frame.
Which is what ended up happening. Like, after the developer mentioned, 7 months, that's no time to develop the game. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it plays and it looks and it kind of feels that way, but it's also charming as hell. Where 3 and 4 were just ridiculously silly and just wild. This one fits within the context of what they were trying to do, where it's, fits in with RC cars and being for kids and all that. Really rough around the edges compared to really any of the other games. It felt like it was slapped together too quickly. But I had a lot of fun with it. It says the levels were really fun. One thing I was gonna mention, like with Toy Story 2, it was fun being a toy and navigating like all these giant,
human scale environments.
Exactly. Yeah. So doing that with the RC cars was really fun, and a lot of the levels are pretty creative, and the weapons were fun too. And then the storylines were they were cute, they were good, they were harmless. It was really wild to follow up something like Black, where it was just so polished and just so carefully crafted with this. But again, if they're on a time crunch, it explains everything.
It does. It does.
Yeah,
it's hard to fault this game too much because it's. They only had so much time, and it's hard. You're never going to compare Twisted Metal Black a few months before. And plus, PS2 is such a hot thing at the time. Like, it only been out for 7 months, and this was on an aging PS1.
Yeah.
This game was basically doomed from the beginning, the moment they switched it to PS1.
Exactly. So, all those things considered, it was still a pretty fun time. And for what it was essentially a Twisted Metal game for kids that was really rough around the edges. It was a lot of fun to play. And then, ironically, it was, maybe because it was made for kids, I was able to get through all of it, no problem.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So I was able to get through all of it. I was able to unlock everything, too, which was great. But I had a lot of fun with it. I think a lot of it is probably nostalgia, too, because it was at the tail end of what, the PS1.
Yeah.
And again, I think, my affinity for, not so great, more crappy games is there's just this sense of, all right, well, I'm enjoying this and no one else is, so it's kind of like my game to enjoy.
Yeah. Again, it's like, it's not terrible. Like, I played a little bit of it recently because I got a copy because it's starting to get expensive. This one's going up there. It's like $70-$80 now or something like that. It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
But, it is slow. It's not a particularly good looking game, but you could play worse. You could always play worse.
Yeah.
How many games can you name that were told to go back a generation because they were already planning this on the PS2 and programming it? Whereas usually you're like, oh, we started something like Resident Evil 0 on N64.
Oh, yeah, and you went forward.
And they went forward, and then that get like maybe a shorter development time. But this is going backwards and then expecting something from that.
I would say in a certain sense, Nightfire, because that was supposed to, not for Asian Fire, because that was supposed to, the world is not enough, or did I have it backwards? There was one that was supposed to be on PS2.
Agent Under Fire was supposed to be The World Is Not Enough on PS2.
Oh, okay, so I got it backwards then. Okay, so that wasn't it. Yeah, I'd have to look into that, because I don't imagine, there's not many series that had one starting out for the PS2 or wherever it was.
And they were like, no.
They're like, no.
Make it crap.
Let's just, let's not cannibalize sales. Let's just ruin the sales for the game you're working on.
Yeah.
That's really what they're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine if it was on PS2, it would have been pretty damn fun.
Well, they would have they would have been able to use what they were working, because I think, again, like that, we keep saying it, but it's like, that's what sucks for them, is like they had all whatever work they had done basically thrown away to go backwards on the PS1.
Think of the marketing too. You could make double packs, and then
it would be great.
Like a parent could get Twisted Metal Black and then have Small Brawl for their kids.
Yeah,
and then accidentally give Black to the kids.
Yeah.
Oops.
I didn't take it out of the tray.
Overall, so this one's a little bit harder to find, I would say. I don't know if I'd go seek it out necessarily unless it ends up being a PS Plus game at some point. Just look up some videos, get an idea for what it is, because it is a piece of Twisted Metal history. It's just not a very good one, unfortunately.
Oh, hey, we can't forget about the odyssey of buying this thing.
Oh, I told you, yeah. I guess we can mention that for some context. Again, Bob and I used to love Kmart's because that's where our parents would always take us before Target opened up in our town. And we have fondness for this one employee there. He was like whenever you work retail, there's some of us who are sticking to the letter of things of their job and like take everything very seriously. And that's who this guy, Derek, was.
Mm-hmm. You told me about this.
Yeah. So I really wish I knew what Derek was doing 25 years later just to see. But I just remember he had he had like a bowl cut. He had like this porno man stash going.
He looked like is it Nick Offerman?
Yes, that's actually a good comparison. Yeah, but he was always like giving us flack for buying stuff because you had like Grand Theft Auto 3. Like we had to get my mom to go up there because obviously I was mature age, so he had a little bit more context for that to say, hey kids, like you guys are 15 or 16, why are you buying this? But Bob got carded to buy Twisted Metal Small Brawl, and I think it was it rated E? I don't remember what it was.
I think it was rated
teen?
T. It was T for teen,
it was teen, yeah. Bob was like, let's see, when this came out, 2000, you were like 11.
Yeah.
You were barely out of the teen range. I think it was 13 plus.
Yep. I remember very vividly. I think that might be where a lot of the nostalgia lies.
Yeah.
I remember bringing the game up to the counter, and I remember this guy too. I'm like, okay, I should be fine with this one. And I go up there, and he looks at the game, and he just shifts his eyes up towards me, like I should have known. Like, what are you trying to? Are you trying to pull a fast one, kid?
Yeah, like a kid trying to buy beer or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So and then he leans over the counter, rests his elbows on the glass, holds it up with his finger tapping on the tee,
Oh my gosh.
and then he was just like, "Sir, I can't sell this to you." And I was like, "Why?" And he tapped it. He goes, "You see this? T for teen. It'd be 13. Do you have an adult that can come and buy this, maybe, or talk to me at least?" I was like, I guess I'll go find someone. And then I got our aunt, because she was buying it for a Christmas present. She was like, "Oh, just go get it. Here's the money."
Yeah.
And I was like, I did not think I had to go fetch you like half the store away because I'm being carded for
Yeah.
Small Brawl, where it's got a little kid sweet tooth on the cover
With an
playing-
RC car.
With an RC car.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my goodness. So,
Good for him doing his job. It's just that guy. He's so funny because he was just. I have so many memories of Kmart and going to the electronics place for him because he was the electronics clerk at the time and always selling us games and stuff. And super nice guy. It's just
Yeah.
funny when we're doofus teenagers trying to buy stuff we're not supposed to, and he's trying to keep his job. You know.
Yeah, well, because back then, they took it much more seriously now because, it's, things are much different now buying those type of games. But I remember back then when there's talk of just whatever crazy
Censorship
nonsense.
and whatever else might have been going on. At the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I swear, man, did he, when we got, was it Grand Theft Auto 3, was there, right?
We got that there because we got the GameCube there with Metal Gear Solid 2, and he sold us Grand Theft Auto 3, which he did card us for. He had our mom too.
I swear he gave Ma like some kind of like
He gave her a speech about why we shouldn't have this, and Mom's like, whatever, I'm here with the money, give it to them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're getting down to the last couple games here, so we could I don't want to say breeze through them. We'll talk about these at necessary length here. So the first one, sort of one of the last games that came out. I'm going to talk about both of these because they're related to each other because they're basically the same game, one with extra content. So this is Twisted Metal Head On and also Twisted Metal Head On Extra Twisted Edition. So Head On originally released on the PSP in March 2005. It was also developed by Incognito Entertainment and published by SCE. And Extra Twisted Edition, which is the PS2 version of this game, that was released in February 2008, was developed by Eat Sleep Play, so it was David Jaffe's company at that point. So this game is a direct sequel to Twisted Metal 2. It technically ignored Twisted Metal 3 and 4, and like that in this game's regards, they didn't consider that canon necessarily. And this is the only portable Twisted Metal game in existence. It's also the first game in the series to include online play, which is really cool that the PSP did that back then. I didn't get to play online because I don't think we had good Wi-Fi at the time, and I barely got to play it back then. But this was a really fantastic PSP game. It's really gorgeous. It is very much like Twisted Metal 2, like some of the environments are also the same. It has a lot of the characters in this game. And also marks the return of Crimson Fury from not Small Brawl, but from the original game, which he hadn't appeared in the game since Twisted Metal 1 until Small Brawl and this. So he was a big notable one. They also added some new characters in here. There's RV, which is just a big RV. And there's ATV, which is like this person on a quad. I don't know if they have endings or anything. There's also some like mini games where you have to get through like this zigzaggy road thing, and that also lets you unlock different things. I think it's like different levels or different cheats, if I recall, something like that. And they're also found in story mode, and they're usually hidden in some way, like you have to break down like a wall or something like that. So this game does a lot to keep the Twisted Metal 2 variety intact, and this was one of the earliest PSP games I got, and this is also one of the more, like I mentioned, like one of the most visually impressive portable games, especially for back then. Like it looked like a PS2 game, but portable. Do you remember playing this one much at all back then, Bob?
Yeah, whenever I think of PSP, besides the UMD movies,
this
is the first
Twisted
thing.
Metal?
Yeah, this is the first thing I think of because I remember I actually went through it all the way back then, and I thought it was cool to have it portable. That was awesome. And if there was any game that was a perfect example of mashing the style of 2 and Black together.
Oh yeah, this is it.
Yeah, it was definitely this one because it felt like it was just both games thrown into a blender, and that's what came out. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't remember a whole lot about like the endings and much of that. But I remember it being it felt like playing Black on a portable with the style of 2 and like a hint of Black in there. But I remember it being a lot of fun, and I remember the art style being especially impressive for like, a lot of the endings and all that.
It looked great, and also I would say this is almost like a Twisted Metal 2 director's cut in a sense because it's a sequel, And it's so much a sequel that it does look like Twisted Metal 2 and it plays like it. But I also think it's a lot more polished. Like a lot of the goofiness and a lot of the AI garbage from the Twisted Metal 2 isn't here. So it's a little bit more balanced as far as like, being able to survive and not die every 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And this also has some like boss fights. Like I fought one of the earlier bosses where you're fighting like the guy in the RV and he has like one goon out of each window that's shooting you and you have to kill them with like weapons or like your the gas can thing, the napalm thing. So it does kind of shake up the variety with that, whereas like these different boss fights with different sort of requirements to finish them. The extra Twisted edition is the more interesting one here because this was a budget sort of greatest hits release on PS2. It was $20, and this came out. This included live action cutscenes that were cut from the original game. Those were the endings I was mentioning. Those are all intact here. There was a concept art book. There was a code for a Twisted Metal soundtrack. And there's also the unfinished Twisted Metal Black sequel called Twisted Metal Harbor City, which they call Twisted Metal Lost in here. And what that is, it's just so it's called like Far Harbor. So it's basically just like I think 1 or 2 levels that look like Twisted Metal Black. It's really more of just like considered like an early alpha or like a concept thing more than anything else because there's no endings or anything here. It was just something that they started to work on it. From one reason or another, Twisted Metal Black 2 just got canceled. The project got canceled. So they put whatever they had in here, and that was kind of the cool gimmick here. And then also what's most interesting is there's a Sweet Tour. You play as Sweet Tooth in like this dark, dank, almost like corridor kind of area, and you basically just run around. It's like a 3D platformer, and you find these collectibles that are like, you find some of the endings in there, you find concept art. It's just sort of one interactive way to get all the extra tidbits that they added extra Twisted Edition. So this is really sort of a, again, this is actually more of a director's cut of the PSP game more than anything else because it's sort of, the graphics look a little bit better because it's on PS2. It plays a little bit better. And unfortunately, my disc broke apparently because it won't work on my PS3. So I have to get a new one. But I played on an emulator and it's still a ton of fun. Ducey, did you get to play this one much at all?
Not at all. In fact, I have confused this one with the next one.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I was like, wait a minute, there's 2 more to go? Like,
yeah.
I forgot, but for some reason I did remember that there was a PSP game. I just thought like maybe it was the next one on both big systems and PSP or something that. Even though the timelines would be very much different. But I was just like, when I saw this, I was like, oh, okay, that's what this one is.
This one's worth buying. If we see it in the store, I think you should definitely pick it up because it's just a better Twisted Metal 2 is really what it is.
Nice.
And the PS2 version is even better because, like it says, all the extra bits on there. I'll quickly go through some of the reviews here because I've kind of mashed up both. I just got the Metacritic for both. So the PSP version, which is the original head-on, that got a 79 out of 100. The PS2 Extra Twist Edition was 73 out of 100. So the PSP, just some snippets I got. Some of the reviews were revolving around the great graphics on online play, and it doesn't need to deviate from the formula of the old games. Fans and newcomers will love it. Some of their bad reviews said that there isn't anything new, and vets will not be interested for the simple gameplay, which I find a complete lie, because I actually love this game. Yeah. Like, this is what vets wanted, if anything else.
Yeah.
Right?
It's pretty good, yeah.
Return the form, please.
The Extra Twisted version had some similar positive and negatives, obviously, because it's largely the same game, and some were critical that it was a 3-year-old port of a PSP game, so it may not appeal to everyone except fans of the series. And they said you're still better off buying Black. I'm like, well, I agree that too, but this is still $20 right at the launch, and it's worthwhile. And it's also... this is also on a nearly 8-year-old system, right, at this time, on 2008 for a PS2. PS3 and 360 have been out for at least 2 to 3 years at this point. So,
oh, wow.
So it's a bit of a disparity when you're looking at those modern next-gen games and you got a PS2 release that's support of a PSP game. So for me, $20, it's negligible, right? It's not a big deal. I think you'll enjoy your time with this one.
And you have to wait how long before you get an official Twisted Metal on the next gen, so might as well go back to this one.
Like, this is the best you'll get for a long time.
Yeah.
Which I guess will carry us into the final game we're talking about, which is simply titled Twisted Metal, released February 14th, 2012. This was developed by Eat Sleep Play and published by Sony Computer Entertainment. This one took 3 years to develop, and it was tentatively called Twisted Metal Apocalypse before that concept was dropped, even though when you play this, you could definitely tell it sort of has an apocalyptic theme. That's a really hard thing for me to say.
I feel like that's what the show leaned on, was this version.
I think it did, for sure. Absolutely, yeah. This started as a downloadable PS3 game before the publisher asked for it to be a full game, and it was shifted to a $40 multiplayer game, kind of like Warhawk and SOCOM had transitioned to, which, for better or worse, I think for worse in a lot of instances, because this game, I love this game, but it has some faults, which we'll talk about. And also, Sony also forced the online pass system, which I forgot about. But I don't know if you guys remember this. This was a big thing in like the early 2010s where publishers are trying to cut down on used game sales, and they have these online passes. So if you want to play online,
yeah.
you had to buy the game brand new, so you get the stupid code to redeem, and it unlocks like this digital key that allows you to play online. Otherwise, you have to pay, I think it was like $10 for an online pass if you want to play online. When I booted this game up and I played on my PS3, it said like, "Oh, you don't have an online pass. Do you want to get one?" I was like, "Oh God, I forgot about this garbage." I'm glad that died, but it's a relic of the past.
Was that only for online play? At least you could still
Only
do,
for online play,
you could still do a
exactly.
single.
Yeah, which I mean the servers are down now anyway, so it's
Yeah.
not a big deal. It's just funny that I saw that message when it popped up.
Yeah.
And also this has a really heavily licensed soundtrack that I forget about. There's people like Wolf Mother on here, Ghostface Killer, Iggy Pop's in here, Rob Zombie, Judas Priest, NWA,
Oh.
Avenged Sevenfold, Sepultura, and even Sammy Hagar, which when I heard that playing this, it instantly reminded me of Back to the Future 2 when you see Biff's tower.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the format of this game, it's still car combat, but it's definitely a different twist of metal, and I think it's a twist of metal that I don't like as much as the other games, because this is definitely multiplayer centric first and foremost. Like the moment you boot it up, it just feels like it's a generic, I don't say generic, that's too strong a word, but a watered down twist of metal, because there's only 3 main drivers in this game that you play as that have a sort of main story, which immediately turned me off when I played this. And all the cars are now part of sort of these factions. Like there's a Sweet Tooth faction that has like these, like the ice cream truck that can transform, and these different bulkier cars. There's who else? Mr. Grimm, where everything's like a motorcycle or some instance. There's Dollface. And they're really the 3 main characters here. Here's the factions. Clowns, Skulls, Dolls, and the Holy Men, which I thought was fun because there's a preacher in here. The cars in here are the infamous cars from the original games are still in here, but there's no distinct drivers. So like you'll have a roadkill car, but it's just mapped to your Sweet Tooth could be driving it, or your Mr. Grimm.
Oh, weird.
You're right, yeah. So it's really just like you have the characters as cars, and then you only have like a handful of characters, which I think really kind of ruined this game. But it also makes sense given that this was supposed to start out as a multiplayer game, and they eventually basically decided to shoehorn a single player story into this. And you could tell it definitely wasn't working.
I mean, I guess 2012 might be a little early for this, but if they wanted a multiplayer focused Twisted Metal, they could do somewhat of a hero shooter.
Yeah.
But as, so each car has its individual personality and what you want to, your play style forms to one of those cars, and then you go out in teams of 5-on-5 or something.
I think it would have worked that way. If anything, like this was maybe released at the wrong time, like you said.
Yeah.
Where it's just nowadays this is pretty common. Even it could be like free to play, where you unlock a bunch of stuff through battle passes and whatever garbage. I think that might work in some instances since car combat isn't popular anymore.
Yeah.
But I think for 2012, and especially for my expectations, like I don't know about. Did you play this at all, Ducey? I forgot to ask.
No,
not at all.
No.
I know Bob, you play this quite a bit. I think
because I feel like I heard all of this negativity towards it. And I was like, oh, they tried to make a comeback and it didn't work.
It sucks because the game plays great. I actually really love how much I actually played this for quite a bit when I played this a few weeks ago. It plays really, really well. Like it controls really well. I don't like some of the weapons and how they feel, but it just feels like it's such a condensed, featureless version of Twisted Metal. Like everything I loved that made the original game so good, largely gone from this. In the stories here, there's only 3 main ones, and they have these really cool cutscenes that I think are a mix of like live action and CG.
Yeah.
Like Sweet Tooth's story is that he's a serial killer trying to find his daughter Sophie. He enters the tournament so Calypso can reveal where she is. Once he wins, Calypso sends Sweet Tooth to a coffin and tells him his daughter committed suicide 10 years ago because she could not cope with his crime. So again, they're continuing with like the morbid endings and like these twists and everything like that. There's just far less of them, and there's like a larger story, I think, with the Holy Man Preacher, where that like those 3 stories you play as, which is like Dollface, Mr. Grimm, and Sweet Tooth, they all culminate to like an epilogue with the Preacher. But it's just the story it feels like a single player adventure almost, with almost like a Pulp Fiction thing, where everything's sort of anthologized in some way, where it's like these disparate stories that all somehow connect in some way. But it just doesn't feel right to me. But Bob, what did you think back then?
I was instantly turned off that they went with just the 3 characters. I thought that wasn't very Twisted Metal. I thought that was a really odd choice. The cutscenes were fun. They were, live action, but they were heavily stylized, so they were pretty entertaining and, pretty fun to watch. They kept a lot of that, dark tone from Black, but they kind of also, moved away from that a little bit. And I think this comes down to kind of like my personal preferences, where they seem to focus on a lot of things that I don't particularly like in games.
Specifically.
I don't like multiplayer. I like playing by myself. So that was instantly, it's like, okay, well, it's like you said, it seems clear they were going more for like a multiplayer experience, but I'm like, okay, I don't want to do that. The online play thing, that was new to me because I don't play online. So I was like, okay, that doesn't bother me.
I played a few matches online back then, but I can tell you, like, I couldn't stick with it at all because it did have some cool modes. Like, it had the typical, like, deathmatch style modes, last car standing, last person standing, whatever you want to call it. And the big mode that they were touting before release was, it was called, like, nuke mode, I think it was called, where one faction is transporting this giant statue on, like, this giant minion big rig kind of thing, and the other team is trying to will away damage on this thing so they could basically sort of detonate it before, or they have to destroy it before it can be sort of detonated and destroy the environment in their team. I think it's like it goes to the other faction or something like that. And also, once you destroy the nuke, you also have to kill the leader of the other team and sacrifice them so you can launch the missile to hit this other statue that's on the other team's base. So it's a pretty wild game, game mode. It's just when I played it, it was a little bit too chaotic to understand what the hell was going on, right? Which happens. Like, there's no real sort of onboarding, I guess we'll say, to kind of teach you how to play this necessarily. So I fell off pretty quick because realistically, like, an online Twisted Metal should have been easy. Should have been right in the bag. Should have been playable. Deathmatch. That's all you really need, right? And this feels like that they tried to get a little bit too ambitious, and maybe it didn't pay off in most instances.
Yeah, I agree. And then, the game, it was fun. That was his big saving grace, that it was really thrilling to play. But as far as Twisted Metal, it was a big disappointment that, that's what it ended up being on, next gen PS3. Is that they went that route.
Amazing on PS3.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's the same for other people, but for me, the big selling point was the stories, the narratives, the endings, the characters, all this. And when you like, okay, well, there's 3 of them. And it's almost like you're playing through an anthology.
Yeah,
like, okay, well, that's not particularly enticing. And I was not a big fan, even though 3 and 4 did this. I wasn't a big fan of doing all the licensed music as well.
It was weird because as much as I like some of the music in here, it doesn't fit with what Twisted Metal is.
Yeah,
because you have that playing over the game. Like, it's different when Paint Black's on the title screens and menus.
Yeah,
but it's different when you're hearing, I Can't Drive 55 by Sammy Hagar and I'm destroying cars in front of me or something,
Yeah, and I remember playing it and I was like, this is okay. It felt more like custom soundtracks than the game. And then I remember at one point I was taken aback, so I was like, okay, I like the song, but they started playing Straight Outta Compton. And I was like, okay, that's fun. It makes it a little more thrilling and exciting.
Fit.
Yeah. So just
only if there's an LA level.
Yeah. Tonally, it was off. I thought it was just they got to get overly ambitious. It was still really, really fun, but as far as Twisted Metal goes, I'm like, no, thank you. It was fun to play, but it's not something where I'm like, I'm going to play that a few more times.
I wish they could make a pure Twisted Metal game with how this game plays because it's really, really fun. It has some really cool ideas. It just feels so neutered and so, I don't want to say soulless, but it feels soulless.
No, that makes sense for games of the time.
Yeah. A lot of them tried to do the multiplayer thing and that was like the thing to do. And this it didn't fall flat. It just kind of missed the mark a little bit.
You could call this any other thing, like Cars and Rockets or whatever.
You could have, yeah.
Yeah, and then that's all it is. It doesn't feel like a Twisted Metal.
You're right, because if it wasn't for the fact that they had Sweet Tooth, Mr. Grimm, and Dollface, and arguably The Preacher, this could have been any other car combat game you can imagine. It could have been just anything else.
Yeah, and then call it being stuck in the past, but when they're reinventing the wheel for certain games, or trying to, with like Twisted Metal, it's like, okay, you don't need all this crazy multiplayer. You don't need all these crazy features. You don't need to be playing pretty much a Michael Bay movie when you're playing it. It's just do straightforward Twisted Metal, keep it the way it is, but freshen it up in different manners than just trying to shoehorn. Okay, well, it's gonna be a crazy multiplayer game, or they floated the open world. And I'm like, why would you need Twisted Metal to be open world? But again, that could just be stubbornness on my part. But actually, all the things they tried, I was like, I'm not a huge fan of this.
After seeing the series now, you could do sort of an open world.
I think they could, because how awesome could it be? And again, despite my complaints of open world racers and traveling, I think it'd be so cool if you would travel these different sort of venues or tournaments of sorts, right? Or different skirmishes and everything, or there's stuff that could happen in the interim while you're traveling these things, right? Like there's sort of you're in someone else's territory and they attack you.
Look at in the show they said that when the further east you get, there's those really bad storms.
Yeah, exactly.
That could mess you up in certain matches too.
Yeah. And I'll note here too, like the reviews for as middling as we sound, that's really what the reviews were as well. This got a 76 out of 100 on Metacritic. So some of the more positive reviews said that it had an enjoyable and challenging single player and incredible multiplayer support, but it falters with the storytelling, only including 3 players, which they thought was a weird choice. And it embraces traditions of the series, which I think that it does excel that in some respects, obviously, not in the story respects that we mentioned. And some of the weaker reviews said the campaign is miserable and was an afterthought, which I completely agree with. I wouldn't say miserable, but it was definitely an afterthought. And another review said that it had limited multiplayer modes with shoddy graphics, which I don't agree with. Like the graphics here, pretty damn good for the time in 2012. They looked really, really nice, and it ran really, really fast. Like all the environments were really dense.
Was it 60 frames?
Yeah, it looked like it to me. It was really crisp and fluid. Yeah, it was really nice. So this is one of the more flawed Twisted Metal games where I wish it was better, right? But it's not a bad game. It's just it didn't have a lot of what made me love Twisted Metal to begin with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. It wasn't a bad game at all. And again, I don't find really many games bad. It was just disappointing.
It's just fine.
Yeah, it was fine. It had a lot of thrilling moments. But as far as Twisted Metal goes, yes, something else would have been nicer.
Yeah, this is the weakest of the bunch for sure. All right, guys. Well, we made it through the entire series.
Damn.
After a little bit of a while here. Yeah, so I guess, I spoiled what my favorite was, but I guess if we want to go around the table very quickly before we wrap up here and say what's your favorites, and maybe honorable second or third place Twisted Metal was. For me, it was obviously Twisted Metal Black, and I think I have to put Twisted Metal 1 right behind that. And then maybe Twisted Metal Head On after that, because I felt like that was the best Twisted Metal game that was a little too late, because it was like 2005 or what it was.
In the second half of their lifetime.
Yeah.
No, I'd be the exact same. Twisted Metal Black and then Twisted Metal 1. Merely because of Twisted Metal 1, all the memories we had and how it got me into the series. And then Black was definitely the pinnacle.
Yeah, the peak, and I don't think it ever got nearly as good since, frankly. Bobby.
Yeah, I'm going with Twisted Metal Black and Twisted Metal 3.
Yeah,
I knew that. I wanted to get that in there.
That's why you had to runner up.
Yeah, I knew I was going to go with that. Yeah. All right, friends. Well, we've reached the end of our Twisted Metal marathon. Hopefully, by the time you listen to this, you'll be able to watch season 2 or at least catch up on season 1. And if you want to reach out to us, you can reach out via email at legiongamingpod@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram or anything else at Legion Gaming Podcasts. And if you want to reach out to us on Blue Sky for some reason, we're at legiongamingpod.bsky.social. Bob and Ducey, any final words for our friends who might want to go for one last wish with Calypso?
Just press start to continue.